Chapter 7:14. The next day, Noah, who finished washing up early, came out of the apartment and went to the restaurant that had been closed for the past few days. Yawning, Noah resisted the remaining sleepiness. Even though his face was a little lazy, his footsteps were still quite steady. Of course, Noah didn't let himself maintain this lazy appearance. He quickly pulled himself together and quickened his pace. The appearance of Lancer yesterday made Noah realize that the real beginning of the Holy Grail War was not far away. Lancer inadvertently revealed that before meeting Ryder, he had already fought with Berserker, which proved that at least 3 servants had gathered in Fuyuki City. The remaining 4 servants could be gathered at any time. As long as 7 servants were gathered, then the battle called the Holy Grail War would really begin. Before that, if I can meet Berserker, it may be a good thing to test his strength. With this thought in mind, soon, Noah's vision appeared in front of the restaurant that he had been to twice. At this time, Ryder's voice suddenly sounded. "Master." Noah was just about to yawn again, but when he was called by Ryder, his movement also stopped. Then, Ryder said, "That's right. There is a servant nearby." Without Ryder's reminder, Noah also detected an abnormal magic within the range of his sensing ability. At this moment, Noah turned his head and looked in the direction of the abnormal magic. As a result, Noah saw it. On the sidewalk in front of the restaurant, on the familiar side of the flower bed, 2 girls were standing side by side. They were quite eye-catching, and they often attracted the attention of the surrounding pedestrians. These 2 girls, one looked at her partner with an uneasy expression, and the other directly cast her gaze and accurately fell on Noah, revealing a sense of displeasure and seriousness in her eyes. They were Tong Ying and Rin Enbin. The servant is next to the magician. Ryder, who was spiritualized, told Noah so. In that case, there was no need to doubt the identity of the master of the servant who was spiritualized like Ryder. Apart from Rin Enbin, who else could it be? After all, Rin Enosaka had the stigmata and was chosen by the Holy Grail as a candidate for master. Then, it wouldn't be strange for him to summon a servant and become a master last night. With these thoughts running through his mind, Noah did not have the slightest scruple on the surface, and directly walked in the direction of Tosakura and Rin Enbin. As Noah approached, Noah clearly heard Rin Dosaka's muffled gasp. He actually came. That guy. Hearing this soft voice, Noah couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Speaking of which, yesterday, Tong Ying had indeed asked Noah to continue looking at her foot injury today. But because of Lancer's attack yesterday, Noah's mind was full of the Holy Grail War after he returned home, and he really did forget about this matter. However, had Jian Tangjing's foot injury not healed yet? That was just a small sprain. For an injury of this degree, when Noah first healed Tong Ying, he should have healed it with magic, right? With such doubts, Noah came in front of the 2 girls. For a moment, Noah felt that the servant other than Ryder was emitting a fierce aura. The moment she noticed this aura, Ryder, who was spiritualized, also mobilized her magic. 2 auras that could not be detected by bystanders collided in the air, and the friction created fierce sparks, making the atmosphere at the scene become hostile. Whether it was Noah or Rin Enbin, they both noticed this change. However, both of them knew that this was their servant guarding against each other. Therefore, Noah and Rin Enbin deliberately ignored this change, allowing their servant to be on guard, and they themselves looked at each other. The first to speak was Noah. "Why are you here?" "Ah, Mr. Noah doesn't know?" Rin Enbin, like a dignified young lady, showed a perfect smile to Noah. "Of course, to prevent some people from getting close to my schoolmate." "Tenbana-senpai." Jian Tangjing hurriedly said. "Mr. Noah is really not a bad person. Sakura, you have to know, in this world, the human heart is very complicated." Rin Enbin glanced at Noah meaningfully. Some people are not as simple as they seem on the surface. There was no need to guess who she was referring to. Helpless, Jian Tangjing could only bow to Noah and apologize. "I'm sorry, Mr. Noah, Tenbana-senpai is like this for me, please don't mind." While speaking, Jian Tangjing looked at Noah with uneasy eyes. "Please don't be angry, it's all my fault." "You." Noah bitterly smiled. I had a feeling the first time I saw you. You seem to have low self-esteem, and your thoughts are very negative. Moreover, there is always uneasiness in your eyes. If possible, it's better to be a little more confident in yourself. Or has your confidence been absorbed by the young lady beside you? What do you mean? Rin Enben widened his eyes and stared at Noah. Are you saying that I'm overconfident? I didn't say that. Noah said with a half smile. It's just a little advice from an adult, don't mind it. Little girl. Rin Enben's face almost twisted. You're just a little older than me, how can you be considered an adult? At least, I'm not at the age where I should stay in school. Noah kindly reminded. Normal people call this kind of person an adult. Who invented such a stupid standard? Rin Enben said with disdain. If a childish guy like you is considered an adult, then I'm going to give up on being an adult. Is that so? Noah glanced at Rin Enben's not-so-protruding part and smiled. You can easily tell that she's still a little girl. Rin Enben felt an uncontrollable anger bursting from the bottom of his heart, making him want to strangle Noah. On the other side, Tongying looked at Noah and Rin Enben who were arguing with each other. Her eyes were filled with envy. In Jian Tongjing's eyes, Noah and Rin Enben's behavior was like a close friend who had known each other for many years. It made her feel like she shouldn't be there, and a trace of disappointment appeared in her heart. Noah had been paying attention to Jian Tongjing. After noticing the disappointment in Jian Tongjing's eyes, Noah sighed. So, didn't I tell you to be a little more confident? Ah. Only then did Jian Tongjing wake up and subconsciously lower her head. I'm sorry, you're apologizing again, you child. Noah rubbed his eyebrows as if he had a headache, and suddenly grabbed Jian Tongjing's hand. Since that's the case, come and accompany me today. After saying that, Noah didn't even give Jian Tongjing a chance to react, and directly pulled her in another direction. Noah. Mr. Noah? Jian Tongjing exclaimed out loud. You. Where are you going to take me? Anywhere is fine. Noah said without turning his head, taking Tongjing with him. I don't know why, but I feel a little uncomfortable when I see you being so polite to the point of inferiority. So, today, your task is to get familiar with me, and when you feel less restrained and inferior in front of me, I'll let you go. But. Jian Tongjing, who was being pulled away by Noah, didn't even have the thought of resisting, but quickly said. I have to go to class. Class? Noah retorted with a single sentence. Looking at you, I don't think you've ever skipped class, but if you haven't skipped class, then it's not like you're enjoying school life. Today's class, just skip it. Jian Tongjing could only helplessly be taken away by Noah domineeringly. Looking at the gradually disappearing Noah and Jian Tongjing, Rin Enben, who was stunned by the sudden development, reacted. Where do you want to take Sakura? Abduction. Chapter 7:15. This is, looking at the high-rise hotel in front of her, Toru Sakura was stunned and didn't react for a long time. On the side, although Rin and Osaka wasn't as stunned as Toru Sakura, he frowned and looked at Noah with displeasure. Why did you bring us here? To be precise, I just brought Sakura here. Noah corrected him. You followed me here. If I didn't follow you, who knows what you would do to Sakura? Rin retorted. Also, don't call her so intimately, what's your relationship with Sakura? We met by chance. Noah replied with a smile. Of course, we won't be soon. After that, Noah no longer paid any attention to Rin Inaka. He grabbed Tomoyaka's hand again and led her into the hotel. Tomoyaka looked at him in confusion. Let's go, follow me. Noah-san. Toru Sakura said shyly as she looked at Noah holding her hand. Where are you going to take me? That's right. Noah turned his head and smiled. You'll know soon. That guy. Seeing that Noah didn't want to pay attention to him, Rin and Osaka was so angry that his ponytail was about to stand up. How dare he ignore me? I must teach him a lesson. As soon as his voice fell, another calm and cold voice sounded from the surroundings and drilled into Rin and Osaka's ears. Rin, that master doesn't seem to be simple. If you continue to follow him like this, I think it's too irrational. I don't need you to tell me. Rin and Osaka threw out such a sentence without looking back. But that guy has been pestering Sakura, I can't not watch from the side, right? Rin and Osaka didn't wait for a response. Seeing that Noah and Toru Sakura were about to enter the hotel, he quickly followed them. Ding! With the sound of the elevator, Noah, Rin and Osaka, and Tomoki Sakura arrived at the top floor of the hotel. The scene that appeared before their eyes left Noah and the other two young ladies stunned once again. What appeared before the three of them was a very spacious venue. The size of the venue was similar to a ballroom. Not only were there round tables covered with white cloths placed everywhere, there were also long square tables in the corners with all kinds of dishes and glasses filled with champagne placed on them. In addition, there were people in high-class dresses in the venue. There was also a space in the middle for some couples to dance. It was like a ball in the upper class. There was indeed a ball being held here. When Noah appeared with the two girls, many people in the venue turned their attention to them. When they realized that the three people who came were very young and were wearing casual clothes, they looked at each other. In such an atmosphere, not to mention Tomoki Sakura, even Rin and Osaka was a little embarrassed. They were surrounded by upper-class people wearing high-class dresses, only they were wearing casual clothes. Wasn't that like an ugly duckling breaking into a group of swans? Noah. Mr. Noah. Tomoki Sakura unconsciously hid behind Noah, her eyes full of uneasiness. Hey. Rin and Osaka tried his best to maintain a calm expression, but behind his back, he gritted his teeth and growled at Noah. Why did you bring us here? Hearing this, Noah ignored Rin and Osaka and Tomoki Sakura, under the strange gaze of the people in the venue. After looking around the entire venue, he fixed his eyes on one person. At the same time, that person also looked over and was startled. When he found that it was Noah, he showed a happy expression. After apologizing to the people around him, he came over. Mr. Noah, you actually came? The person who came was wearing a high-class dress. He was a man about 30 years old. He looked like a successful person. His behavior was not only very dignified, but also quite enthusiastic. I thought you weren't coming. I'm sorry, Mr. Fujita. Noah reached out and shook hands with the man who he called Fujita. I changed my mind at the last minute. I hope it won't cause you trouble. Why would it? Fujita shook Noah's hand. He was quite enthusiastic. I'm very happy that you can come. Let me introduce them to you. After a while of greeting with Fujita, Noah turned sideways, letting Rin and Osaka and Tomoki Sakura enter Fujita's field of vision. These two are my companions. I brought them together today to support you. Hello, two beautiful ladies. Fujita politely greeted them. Just like Noah, just call me Fujita. Hello. Tomoki Sakura quickly returned the greeting. Greetings, Mr. Fujita. Rin and Osaka, on the other hand, seemed to have finally adjusted her state of mind. She was like a real noble lady, bowing to Fujita with an elegant attitude. She didn't seem to be as bad as when she was with Noah. I'm sorry to disturb you. As you can see, this is Mr. Fujita. We also recently met by chance. Noah introduced to Rin and Osaka and Tomoki Sakura. Mr. Fujita is a very famous jeweler. During this period of time, he also came to Fuyuki City to look for jewelry, and came here on a business trip because I have a good gem, so we met by chance some time ago. Jeweler? Tomoki Sakura's expression was a little stiff. This is a real upper-class rich man, isn't it? Jeweler? Rin and Osaka, on the other hand, reacted to the word jewelry in an instant. Then, he pretended to be serious and coughed. However, when he looked at Fujita, his eyes sparkled as if he was looking at a fat pig. Fujita was a little scared. The gem in Mr. Noah's hand is the best. At the moment, Fujita quickly said with a smile. When I was in the car, I was attracted by the color of the gem in Mr. Noah's hand. At that time, Mr. Noah seemed to be planning to sell the gem. I was so scared that I even forgot to follow the traffic rules and quickly got out of the car. Because of this, I was fined a lot of tickets. As far as the result is concerned, Mr. Fujita bought the gem in my hand, and I was in need of a sum of money at that time. Both sides had a pleasant discussion. Then, Mr. Fujita invited me to attend today's ball. Noah explained, then said to Fujita. I'm sorry, Mr. Fujita, although I refused at that time, I suddenly came to disturb you today. If possible, can you help us prepare the dress? No problem. Fujita readily agreed. Come with me. Turning around, Fujita called Noah and the others and walked in the direction of the inner room. Behind Fujita, Rin and Osaka quietly walked to Noah's side and asked as if he couldn't stand it. Hey, what are you going to do? Mr. Noah. Tong Ying's face became even more uneasy. Are we going to the ball too? That's not very good, right? You always have this idea that makes you feel so inferior. Noah glanced at Tong Ying with a smile. Don't worry, I'll tell you today, you don't have to feel inferior at all. About half an hour later, Noah, wearing a black tuxedo, reappeared at the ball and attracted a lot of attention. Noah originally had an otherworldly temperament and a free and easy atmosphere. In addition, his appearance was not bad. With the tuxedo, Noah naturally looked like he came from an extraordinary background. Many women in the ball frequently looked at him. Fortunately, the women here were all from the upper class and had a lot of education. They were not as bold as the students when Noah worked in Kamigami Academy. However, they always looked at Noah with passionate eyes. Many of them even raised their wine glasses to Noah with some shyness and greeted Noah from a distance. Noah also raised his glass and responded to the people around him with a smile. At least on the surface, he did enough. Noah was not a country boy who had never attended a ball before. No matter which world, Noah more or less came into contact with the upper class, so he was naturally familiar with this. At this time, there was a slight noise around him. Noah subconsciously looked in the same direction as the hubbub, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Chapter 7:16. At this moment, everyone in the ballroom tacitly cast their eyes in one direction and subconsciously stopped what they were doing, making the entire ballroom fall into a brief silence. Not for anything else, but because there were two beautiful flowers that attracted everyone's attention. Tap, 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 tap. Amidst the clear sound of high heels landing on the ground, two young girls walked out side by side from the inner room of the venue, slowly walking out. They were naturally Rin and Osaka and Tama Tanjing. However, at this moment, Rin and Osaka and Tama Tanjing were no longer the girls who would be looked at strangely by the people in the ballroom. At this moment, everyone's gaze on Rin and Osaka and Tama Tanjing was no longer strange, only amazement and admiration. They saw that Rin and Osaka and Tama Tanjing had changed out of their uniforms and put on a rather high-class dress. Rin and Osaka was wearing a bright red dress made of very high-end fabric. The bright red gown seemed to be meant to accentuate Rin and Osaka's elegance. It was embellished with jade fragments, and the hem was long enough to reach her ankles. It was like a cheongsam, with a split in the middle. It perfectly displayed Rin and Osaka's charm in an instant. In addition, Rin and Osaka's black hair, which was originally tied into two ponytails, had been completely removed from her hair accessories. Instead, it was tied into a long ponytail on the right side of her head, making her look even more noble and charming. Tama Tanjing, who was walking beside Rin and Osaka, was also beautiful. Originally, Tama Tanjing had a very delicate appearance, and her figure was also tall and full, more suitable than Rin and Osaka to wear a dress. Now, Tama Tanjing was wearing a pink dress. But different from Rin and Osaka, Tama Tanjing was wearing a princess dress style. Her white shoulders were directly exposed to the air, and the hem was like a pleated long skirt that went straight to the feet. Only a pair of high heels could enter the eyes of others. Lightly walking, it made people feel as if they were looking at a person dancing elegantly, very eye-catching. The appearance of the two girls was like a bright flower blooming under the sun, eye-catching. Although it was not to the extent that everyone in the ballroom fell in love with them, but everyone's eyes were instantly filled with the figures of the two girls at this moment, revealing their emotions. Other than amazement, there was only admiration. Noah was the only one who noticed that something was amiss. Or rather, it should be said that he noticed a trace of abnormality in the two girls' behavior. Rin Enosaka's charming face had a unique smile. She really did look like a well-educated young miss. Her movements and posture were very elegant, without a trace of stiffness. Perhaps it was because she had never attended a ball like this before, but even though her movements and posture weren't stiff, the smile on her face was a little fake. If one wasn't familiar with Rin Enosaka, they wouldn't be able to tell. As for Tong Ying, this young girl did not have the slightest bit of elegance in her actions. Instead, she lowered her head and did not dare to look around. She seemed very uneasy. In addition, Tama Tanjing seemed to have never worn high heels before. Her footsteps were more or less unsteady. If Rin Enosaka was not by her side, she would have been seen through. Under such circumstances, the two girls who were originally just ordinary high school students were forced to the edge of a cliff. At least at this moment, with their elegant posture, they stepped into the scene of the upper-class scene. If this continued, even Rin Enosaka would not be able to stand the gaze of the upper-class people around them, right? Immediately, Noah shook his head and laughed. Well, it's time to help them out. Saying this, Noah put down the wine glass in his hand, stepped in the direction of the two girls, and walked in the direction of the two girls. With this move, Noah also became the focus of everyone's attention, and to a certain extent, the surrounding people's attention was drawn away from Rin Enosaka and Tama Tanjing to a certain extent. Then, under the gaze of everyone present, under Rin Enosaka's somewhat angry eyes and Tama Tanjing's uneasy expression, Noah came in front of the two girls, bent down, and extended one of his hands to Tama Tanjing. "This beautiful lady, can I have a dance with you?" "Huh?" Tama Tanjing suddenly panicked. Me? Yes." Noah smiled at Tong Ying with a smile that couldn't be found wrong with it. "I hope this beautiful lady will do me the honor." Tama Tanjing looked at Rin Enosaka, not knowing what to do. "Isn't it good?" Rin Enosaka did not know if it was because Noah did not invite him, but he turned his head away. "If you don't dance, then it's not a ball." But. Tama Tanjing tightly held the hand with the white glove, and said with extreme nervousness, "I don't know how to dance." "Don't worry," Noah said softly with a smile. "I will lead you, you just need to follow me." After that, Noah did not even give Tama Tanjing a chance to react, and directly took Tama Tanjing's hand and moved in the direction of the dance floor. Now, Tama Tanjing could only tightly hold Noah's hand and use this to eliminate the uneasiness in her heart. Not long after, the two came to the center of the dance floor. With one hand holding Tama Tanjing's hand, and the other hand on Tama Tanjing's waist, Noah looked at Tama Tanjing's still uneasy expression and said in a mosquito's voice, "Relax, just leave it to me, trust me." The words, "trust me," made Tama Tanjing's uneasiness inexplicably dissipate a little. Looking at Noah's dark and deep eyes, she subconsciously nodded. Seeing this, Noah smiled and led Tama Tanjing to dance slowly in the center of the dance floor. Although Noah doesn't know any modern dance, but when it comes to social dancing, because he once needed to go to many occasions in the world of the Dark Bullet, he also learned it for a period of time. For Noah, who is good at using his body to fight in close combat, the movements of social dancing are much easier to learn than he imagined. It didn't take long for Noah to almost completely master it, and he has also shown it on many occasions. Now, the world is different, and the dance partner is no longer a high-level official who needs to be skilled on the surface. Noah just took the girl who was inexplicably very inferior to herself, and led the girl named Tama Tanjing with the most concise, clear, and easy movements, followed the music and immersed in the dance steps. Tama Tanjing felt as if she couldn't control her body, and she was always led by Noah. However, Tama Tanjing's heart, under the influence of Noah and the music, was gradually immersed in it, but she kept looking directly at Noah's eyes, and gradually there were ripples in her eyes. The people around seemed to have been influenced by Noah and Tama Tanjing, and they began to join the dance ranks. As for those who didn't join in, they stood at the side and watched the young man and woman dancing gracefully in the middle of the dance floor with knowing smiles on their faces. Their eyes were filled with delight, and they seemed to be quite fond of it. Lowering his head, Noah met Tama Tanjing's eyes, who had been looking at him, and said softly, "You see, everyone is looking at you without any disdain or disgust at all, right?" Tong Ying seemed to have been awakened. She looked around and saw those people who were pointing at Noah and herself. However, there was no disdain or disgust in their eyes. Instead, they were quite appreciative of them. "So, you don't need to feel inferior at all." Noah's voice echoed softly in Tama Tanjing's ears. "Although it's incredible, I don't know why, but I can feel that there seems to be a shadow in your heart. I know that you must be a person with a lot of stories." Tama Tanjing immediately lowered her head and fell silent. "Everyone has their own secrets, and I won't force you to do anything," Noah said with a smile as if he didn't see Tama Tanjing's performance. "But, no matter what, at least, you must not give up on yourself, and that's right." Tama Tanjing almost involuntarily said such a sentence. "What if I can't save myself at all?" Noah said without hesitation. "Then wait until you can't do anything, and then ask for help from those you can trust." "Ask for help?" Tama Tanjing was stunned. "There's nothing to hesitate about," Noah said casually. "After that, I'll use my whole life to repay them." These words directly swayed into Tama Tanjing's heart, and did not calm down for a long time. Chapter 717. Because of Noah, Rin Hosoka and Tomoki Sakura skipped class for the whole day and stayed at the hotel's ball for the whole day. It wasn't until evening that Noah, Rin and Osaka, and Tomoki Sakura expressed their gratitude to Fujita for entertaining them. They walked out of the hotel under Fujita's escort. Sigh. Rin sighed as soon as they left the hotel. "I feel more tired than ever today." Tomoki nodded, but she also remembered the scene where she and Noah danced on the dance floor. She glanced at Noah, blushed, turned around, and bowed to Noah to thank him. "Thank you, Noah-san. Thank you for taking care of us today." "Oh." Noah raised his eyebrows. "Finally, it's not an apology, but a thank you. I'll gladly accept it." "Accept what?" As if his sore spot had been touched, Rin Enbin came to Xiao Ying's side and faced Noah. He pointed at Noah's nose. "Because of you, we skipped classes for a whole day. How are we going to explain this to the school tomorrow? Can't you just tell them the truth?" Noah shrugged. "Just tell your teacher that someone invited you to the dance. That's easy." "That's not a treat." Rin was angry when she saw Noah's carefree attitude. "No matter what, after today, don't bother Sakura anymore." Hearing Rin Enbin's words, Noah suddenly remembered something and looked at Tosakura. "By the way, your feet should be fine, right?" Yes. Tomoki's eyes were a little evasive. "No problem, please don't worry, is that so?" Noah nodded. "That's good." "Humph." Rin snorted, turned around, and said to Tomoki. "It's getting late, Sakura, you should go back first." "Huh?" Tomoki suddenly tilted her head. "Then, what about Tenosaka-senpai?" "Me?" Rin and Osaka glanced at Noah. "I still have some things to take care of." There was no need to ask to know who Rin Enbin was referring to. Tong Ying opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she chose not to say it and nodded. "I understand. I'll go back first." "Sorry, I won't be seeing you off." Rin Enbin turned around and looked at Noah with a serious expression. "You, come with me." With that, Rin and Osaka turned and left without waiting for Noah's reply. Undoubtedly, that girl acts like a lady when she's with others, but when she's with me, it's like she's facing an enemy. It's as if I owe her money and haven't returned it. Noah shook his head helplessly. "Then Xiao Ying, I won't send you off. Be careful when you get home." "Yes." Tong Ying clenched her hands tightly. In the end, she couldn't hold back and said this to Noah. Noah-san, Tenosaka-senpai only said those words to protect me. Please don't take it to heart. Also, please don't get into a conflict with Tenosaka-senpai because of me. Okay. Noah patted Tong Ying's shoulder. Don't worry. With that, Noah followed behind Rin Enben and left the scene. Looking at Noah and Rin Enben walking further and further away, Tangjing bit her lips. Her heart was filled with worry. Whether it was Noah or Rin Enben, they both thought that Tong Ying was just an ordinary outsider. They didn't expect that Tong Ying's understanding of the Holy Grail War was no less than theirs. Of course, Tong Ying also knew that Noah and Rin Enben had both become master. If Noah and Rin Enben really fought, what should she do? Undoubtedly, Tong Ying knew this, but she couldn't do anything. She felt powerless. At this time, Tong Ying recalled Noah's words. When you can't do anything, ask others for help. Muttering such a sentence, Tong Ying opened one of her hands and let the back of her hand face herself. On it, the bruise-like sacred mark was particularly conspicuous under the setting sun. Today, in order to not let Noah and Rin Enben discover this sacred mark, Tong Ying had been using the long sleeve of her uniform to cover the back of her hand. She had also been careful not to let Noah and Rin Enben discover this sacred mark. Looking at this sacred mark, Tong Ying struggled in her heart. If she could summon a servant, then she would have the ability to stop all of this and also have the ability to save herself. In addition, Tong Ying also said that as long as she gave him the Holy Grail, he would let Tong Ying leave the Tong family. That was something that Tong Ying had always dreamed of. However, whether it was Noah or Rin Enben, they were both people that Tong Ying didn't want to hurt. If she summoned a servant and became the master, then she would have to become enemies with those two people. Only this, absolutely not. Tong Ying tightly held the sacred mark on the back of her hand. After a long time, Tong Ying's heart flashed with an idea that calmed her down. Following behind Rin Enben, Noah came to the inside of a forest. Once they were deep in the woods and out of sight of the skyscrapers, Rin Dosaka stopped and turned around to face Noah with a serious expression on his face. On the other hand, Noah's face was as calm as ever. After looking around, he said casually, "Is this all?" "Ah, this is all." Rin Enben raised his hand and showed the back of his hand to Noah. "If you see this, you will understand, right?" On the back of Rin Enben's hand, there were 3 simple symbols that looked like the sun. That was Rin Enben's command incantation. "I don't need you to tell me that you summoned a servant, Rin Enben." Noah did not even look at the back of Rin Enben's hand. Instead, he looked at the person beside Rin Enben. "After all, the person beside you has been targeting me. If he didn't have any ill intentions, my servant would have killed him already. You're still so confident, but I'll say the same thing. Don't think that you can defeat me." Rin Enben was not angry at all. "Although my servant is not the strongest saber, it is not to be underestimated." As soon as he finished his words, a red shadow appeared. Profession, Archermaster. Rin Enben. Real name? Attributes, neutral, moderate ability points, strength, D durability, C agility, C magic power, B luck, E relics. Profession skills, against magic power, D magic power of this level could be easily broken by a slightly stronger magician. Solo action, Bevan. If the master's magic power supply is interrupted, it has the ability to act on its own temporarily. Level B. When the master is lost or the contract is cancelled, it can last for about 2 days without magic power supply. Protection skills, clairvoyance, also known as the eagle's eye vision ability. It was a necessary ability for an archer. It was also often used for reconnaissance. Just by looking from a high place, you could see the whole town and search for the enemy. In addition, it also affected the shooting accuracy of the bow. When the bow was set up, even if the opponent was moving at high speed, as long as the distance was within 4 kilometers, you could accurately snipe. The accuracy of the long-distance sniping beyond the human territory could be carried out. Magic, C, A+. The magic that he had learned in his previous life was generally ordinary. Before he became a heroic spirit, it was very difficult for him to even use enhance. However, he had another magic that could be said to be unique. He could replicate almost perfect weapons, including the composition of materials. When he replicated, he could even read the effects of the master's skills. Even the servant's noble phantoms and combat skills were no exception. Only when he used this magic, the skill would be upgraded to A+ level. Mind's eye, true be the insight cultivated from cultivation and forging was the ability to calmly grasp one's own situation and the enemy's ability in a disadvantageous situation and find a battle theory that allowed one to find a way to survive. Class B meant that even if there was only a 1% chance of reversing the situation, one would be able to grasp the opportunity and implement it with tactics. Based on the information obtained, one would be able to predict the opponent's actions and break out of the situation. That was only supported by overwhelming combat experience and was not something one could achieve. It was a skill that could only be obtained through repeated cultivation. Chapter 7:18. Almost at the moment when the archer's servant appeared, Noah had already seen through his ability value. After seeing through Archer's ability value, Noah's heart was full of surprise. There were 3 points of surprise. 1. As one of the 3 knights, the ability value of the archer servant was too low. It was much lower than Lancer, who was also one of the 3 knights. 2. In Archer's ability value, there was nothing in the column of the noble phantasm, not even a level. It was really puzzling. 3. As everyone knew, the servants of the 3 knights had magic skills. Although the archer in front of him also had magic skills, the level was only D level. It could only nullify the level of magic. In other words, this archer not only did not have the ability value to match the name of the 3 knights, but he also did not have the magic strength that the 3 knights should have. How should he say it? Wasn't he too weak? Of course, the blank column of the noble phantasm and Archer's skills attracted Noah's attention. Perhaps Archer was the same as Ryder. They were the type that was particularly outstanding in terms of noble phantasm and skills. After seeing through Archer's ability value, Noah saw Archer's appearance. It was a man who was half a head taller than Noah. He was wearing a red and black knight's suit. His skin was quite dark, and his hair was white. Indeed, I have been locking on to your breath. Under Noah's gaze, the archer servant also looked straight at Noah and said expressionlessly, "But I didn't expect that you actually found out. It's really rare to see a magician with such a keen sense. You shouldn't only be wary of your servant. Do you also need to be wary of the master?" Noah's eyebrows suddenly raised. This archer directly said such a sentence in front of him. Wasn't it a bit too arrogant? "I don't need you to remind me, Archer." Rin and Osaka was still staring at Noah. "Then, isn't it time for your servant to show his face?" Hearing Rin and Osaka's words, Noah smirked. "Since he has asked for it, Ryder, come out and show yourself." As soon as he finished speaking, a faint blue mist appeared behind Noah's back, exposing Ryder's figure to the air and entering Rin Enbin and Archer's sight. Ryder's servant? Archer turned to look at Ryder. Seems like a hero spirit with quite a strong background. Rin and Osaka did not say anything. Like Noah, he directly used his authority as a master to check Ryder's ability value. Of course, Rin and Osaka wasn't like Noah, who was able to see the servant's class and skills clearly. However, as a master, it was not a problem for him to see the basic value of the ability value. Therefore, Rin Hosaka clearly saw Ryder's ability value, and his expression changed. Strength and durability are grade B, agility is grade A, luck and relic are grade A+, and mana is grade A+? Even the lowest is grade B? What's going on? That servant. Ryder's strength was obviously beyond Rin and Osaka's expectations. TSK. Even Archer was a little speechless. I thought that the most outstanding magician in this Holy Grail war would be Ling. Was I wrong? No, if it's just magic, I might not even be able to compete with a normal magician, let alone the heir of the Enosaka family who is in charge of this land, Noah said bluntly. As a magician, I'm not qualified. But in terms of mana, I don't think there's any magician better than me, right? You don't have to tell me that. Rin and Osaka subconsciously raised his hand like a gun and pointed it at Noah. He gathered some mana at the tip of his finger. With such a level of mana, why are you still thinking about Sakura? Rin and Osaka thought that Noah was trying to get close to Sakura so that his servant could collect mana from ordinary people. If it's as you said, with such a level of mana, why would I still think about Sakura? Noah crossed his arms and asked. I don't care if you believe me or not, but I'm going to say this for the last time. My meeting with Xiaoying was a coincidence. I do care about her, but it's not to the point where I have bad intentions. Don't try to apply the rules of a magician to me. I've said it before, as a magician, I'm not qualified. Right now, the only magic I can use are limited to 2, and they're just the simple, magic bullet, and the most basic, enhancement. You. What are you doing? Rin and Osaka was shocked. You actually revealed your abilities to your enemy? Are you crazy? Well, if it's only the magician part, it's fine even if I reveal it. Noah looked at Rin and Osaka with a half-smile. Or are you saying that only the magician part of the game can be used in battle? Rin and Osaka was speechless. Whether it's demeanor, ability, or style, they're all quite surprising. Archer spread his hands and said sarcastically. Rin, it's a pity. Even if he's not a magician, as a master, he's a formidable opponent. I already said, I know that even if you don't say it. Rin Enben said hatefully. He gathered mana on his fingertip and pointed it at Noah. He took a deep breath and asked. He took a deep breath and said, then, Rider's master, do you want to fight me here? Are you sure? Noah sighed. It's a pity, but I have to tell you that you can't win against me. Rin and Osaka's eyes twitched. Oh. Even Archer narrowed his eyes. You're that confident that I'm not a match for Rider? I'm not sure if you're a match for Rider, Noah said calmly. But, while you're fighting Rider, I'll take care of your master. I'm sure of that. The corners of Rin Enben's mouth twitched, and even his body trembled slightly. He closed his eyes and suppressed the anger in his heart as he spoke in a low voice. Ah, I should have thought of that. You've been so confident since the beginning. I'm such an idiot for talking to you. No, you should be glad that you talked to me. At least you know the truth. Noah shrugged. Right, you must think that I'm just being confident. I won't deny it. I just want to say that as long as you're a magician, you can't win against me. It's up to you to believe it or not. As long as I'm a magician, I can't win against you? Rin and Osaka frowned. Not to mention Rin and Osaka, even Archer who had been observing Noah frowned. He doesn't look like he's lying, and there's no need for that. Did he prepare a method that only works on magicians? I've already revealed enough information to you, so you can figure out the rest yourselves. Noah said in a tone that seemed to be both true and false. It was as if he was deliberately mystifying things, but at the same time, it was as if he was really serious. What do you think? Do you still want to decide the winner here? Rin and Osaka looked at Noah's confident expression. He didn't know whether Noah was deliberately mystifying or not. He gritted his teeth. You mean, if we don't want to, you'll let us go? Not really. After all, I have my own goals. I need to witness this Holy Grail war. Noah said. However, if he were to fight with you here, that kid who finally gained a little confidence would probably have to worry about something else, right? This time, Rin and Osaka was silent. It was obvious that Rin and Osaka had the same concerns as Noah. At this moment, a giggle that sounded like a silver bell rang out. Then, why don't you play with me? Chapter 719. Then, why don't you play with me? As the clear and melodious voice that sounded like a silver bell rang, everyone, led by Noah, tensed up and turned their heads abruptly to look into the depths of the forest. Who is it? Because of Noah, Rin Enben was filled with anger, and his tone became rather nasty. Don't hide, since you're here, come out. Ah la, so scary. The bell-like voice sounded with a hint of laughter. The heir of the Enben family is so uncultured, how disappointing." Saying such a sentence, a footstep stepped on the leaves, causing a rustling sound to be heard as it slowly approached, little by little. There was only one footstep. However, Noah, with his sharp senses, could sense that there was an unusually dangerous aura beside the footsteps. That aura could no longer be described by humans. It was like a ferocious beast, full of ruthlessness, causing Noah to frown. Then, in the depths of the forest, a petite figure slowly walked into everyone's vision, revealing her full appearance under the illumination of the setting sun. Seeing the owner of the voice, both Noah and Rin Enben were stunned. This was because the newcomer was an unexpected presence. Who? A slight breeze swept through the forest, blowing up the leaves and dust. It also blew up the long hair that was as white as snow and as beautiful as Mercury. She was wearing a snow jacket and a snow hat on her head. She was less than 1.5 meters tall and looked like a 13 or 14-year-old girl. Traces of her immaturity could be seen everywhere. At first glance, she looked like a fairy in the snow. This little girl stepped on the decaying leaves and withered branches, slowly walking out from the depths of the forest. She was like a playful little girl, with her hands behind her back, leaning sideways, and bending over, with a very cute smile on her face. She spoke to Noah and Rin Enben in a crisp voice. "How are you?" It had to be said that this girl was indeed a very cute little fairy. However, the moment he saw this cute girl, Noah's frown deepened, and even Rin Enben's face tensed up, his expression rather solemn. There was no other reason. It was because both Noah and Rin Enben could sense a very sinister aura from this naive girl. Noah even sensed it. There was a trace of blood on this girl's body. It was obvious that she was not as innocent as her appearance and words made her seem. Apart from that, there were traces of magic around the girl's body, proving that she wasn't an ordinary person. TSK. Rin Enben clicked his tongue. "Master?" "That's right." The girl smiled sweetly, lifting her skirt, and bowed slightly. "I am Elia Fisher von Erzburn." "Erzburn?" Rin Enben's expression became even more frightening. "Erzburn?" Noah's heart skipped a beat. The Erzburn of the 3 magic families that established this Holy Grail war ritual? Oh. The big brother over there seems to know it very well. The girl named Elia looked curiously at Noah. "Although I haven't seen Rin, I've heard of him. I don't know this big brother." "Who are you?" After saying that, Elia seemed to be amused by her own question and showed a cute smile, but the words that came out of her mouth were terrifying. "Well, forget it. Anyway, I don't know where this master came from. Since it's a master, then let's kill them together." Turning around, Ilya unguardedly exposed her back to Noah's group. Soon after, she called out, "Come out, Berserker." As soon as she finished speaking, a dense blue mist appeared behind Ilya. Then, compared to the surprise that Ilya's overly young appearance had brought to Noah's group, a figure that was the complete opposite of the extreme appeared. He was at least 2 meters tall and had messy black hair. His muscles were quite taut, and his body was very strong. He wore an armor battle skirt and held a ferocious-looking axe in his hand. His upper body was exposed, and he was barefooted. With the appearance of this burly man, the beast-like violent aura that Noah had just sensed also spread out from him, instantly covering the entire forest. Noah and Rin Enben's eyes focused at the same time, and a faint light appeared in their eyes. The next moment, the ability value of the Berserker servant was presented in different degrees in front of Noah and Rin Enben. Rin Enben could only see the Berserker's ability value. Noah, on the other hand, obtained all the information of the Berserker except for the noble phantasm. Thus, a list of ability values appeared in Noah's mind. Job rank, Berserker Master, Elia Fisher von Erzburn. Real name? Attribute, Chaos, Fury. Ability value, Strength, A+. Durability, A. Agility, A. Magic Power, A. Luck, B. Noble Phantasm, A. Job rank. Skill, Fury, B. Ace. The price to pay for losing his rationality, Berserker's job rank skill is given. Level B. In the case of losing half of his rationality, all of his ability values are increased. Preservation skill, battle continuation. 8 was a skill that allowed a person to continue fighting even when they were on the brink of death. Furthermore, the death rate of the injured person would also decrease. This represented the ability to survive because even if the person died, they would be revived with the help of the relic. It was extremely compatible with the battle that made it difficult for the person to die. This was the best effect brought about by the combination of a strong body and this skill. Mind's Eye Fake B. The ability to avoid danger was honed through many difficult adventures, based on intuition and sixth sense. Even if one's rationality was taken away due to berserk, this ability that was close to instinct was still effective. When fighting against opponents with rich combat skills and battle experience, one wouldn't be deceived by half-baked feints, so this was a very troublesome ability for the opponent. Furthermore, even though he was a giant, his agility was also at the highest level, so even chasing after him would be very difficult. Bravery, A+. With the spirit of bravery, he will not be able to use mental interference skills such as coercion, confusion, and confusion. However, as long as he is in the fury state, the effect of the skill will not be used. When the effect is used correctly, it can also increase the damage to the enemy. With this, he can defeat many monsters with his bare hands. Unfortunately, even the bravery warrior's heart was destroyed due to the fury state. Divinity, Ace. The hybrid of the main god and human in Greek mythology, he will be welcomed after death and become a real god. Therefore, he has the highest level of divinity skills as a servant. When the data of the ability value was fed back, even Noah's face gradually became serious. Is this a lie? Noah did not need to look at the source of the voice. He knew that the trembling voice must be from Rin Enben, who saw Berserker's ability value. Although there was no way to see Berserker's class and skills, Rin Enben must have seen Berserker's ability value. Strength, durability, agility, magic, and noble phantasm. Other than luck, which was level B, the rest were all level A, the highest level. Strength was even level A+. Was there any ability value more ridiculous than this? Not only did we have a guy with A++ mana, but now we have a servant with the highest level in all abilities. There should be a limit to this joke, right? Rin Enben's voice was raised unconsciously. Is there anyone weaker than my Archer in this Holy Grail war? I'm sorry. Archer looked at Berserker solemnly and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, Berserker. However, although it's not appropriate for me to say this, Rin, it's better to retreat here." Retreat? That won't do. Ilya's innocent voice sounded. Because I'm going to kill. Chapter 720. A murderous atmosphere filled the forest under the setting sun, giving Rin Enben and Archer a lot of pressure. Looking at Berserker, who was guarding Ilya like an iron tower, Noah said to Ryder, who was beside him. What do you think? Ryder. Of course, he was asking Ryder if he had the confidence to deal with this Berserker. And as usual, Ryder answered Noah's question in an extremely simple and concise manner with a taciturn manner. If you use all your skills and noble phantoms, you can try. In other words, if Ryder didn't use all his skills and noble phantoms, he definitely wouldn't be a match for the Iron Tower. This answer was also within Noah's expectations. After all, Berserker's ability value was too ridiculous. The so-called rank of Berserker was, in fact, a rank that could only be held by heroes who had gone crazy in battle. A servant was just a clone of a hero spirit that was outside the world. Therefore, under normal circumstances, it would be ideal for a servant to be able to unleash the full potential of their heroic spirit body, in other words, the full potential of their heroic spirit body. However, Berserker's rank would break this ideal state. Berserker's rank would strengthen the servant by using the skill of Berserker's rank. If a strong hero spirit became a Berserker, it was very likely that it would be strengthened beyond the hero spirit's original strength. As such, this job rank was usually used to strengthen weak heroic spirits. However, even if one was stupid, after seeing the ability value of the Iron Tower in front of them, they wouldn't think that he was a weak hero spirit. On the contrary, he should be at the highest level among all hero spirits. Such an existence was strengthened by Berserker's rank. Noah didn't know if he had really surpassed the hero spirit's original strength. What Noah knew was that in terms of ability value, Berserker was definitely the strongest hero in this Holy Grail war. If it weren't for Berserker's ability, Berserker's mana consumption would increase regardless of whether it was maintaining the current world or fighting. It would be a huge burden to the Master, and it might even cause the Master to die due to mana depletion. In addition, because of Berserker's noble phantom's ability might also be affected, it would really be impossible to fight with such a guy. The only fortunate thing was that this Berserker didn't have any noble phantoms or noble phantoms. Therefore, Noah, who could transform into a mobile cannon, should be able to suppress this guy. In addition, Ryder would be assisting him. Victory wasn't an extravagant hope. Noah took a step forward and said to Rin Enben without turning his head. It's up to you whether you want to fight or run. If you want to run, now is the time. If you want to fight, then remember, don't drag me down. Seeing that Noah didn't retreat and chose to face such a monster without fear, Rin Enben and Archer were stunned. Then, each of them reacted differently. I've underestimated your demeanor and courage. Archer, who had been making sarcastic remarks since the beginning, admired Lin Huang from the bottom of his heart. With such demeanor and courage, there's no doubt that you're a hero. If you're given some time, I guess your achievements won't be any lower than the average hero spirit, right? Although I won't force myself, I won't think that running away is embarrassing. Running away is also a strategic choice. Rin Enben took a deep breath and stepped forward. However, we have 2 servants here, and there's only one enemy. If I don't try and run away, then I'll be ashamed of the Enben family's reputation. Did you hear that? The young lady over there? Noah smirked. That's why we're going to start killing. It's very dangerous over there, so hurry and run away. Big brother, are you worried about me? Ilya was stunned for a moment, but then she smiled happily. What a gentle big brother. Then I'll be extra gentle and let Berserker kill you. After saying that, Ilya's tender voice sounded without the slightest trace of emotion. Kill Berserker. After saying that, the Iron Tower-like man suddenly raised his head, and a fierce aura burst out from his body. Roar. In the midst of a beast-like roar, the atmosphere of mutual hostility suddenly exploded. Berserker's eyes were filled with a dense murderous light. His huge arms grabbed the ferocious axe and fiercely stomped his feet on the ground, causing the entire forest to tremble. Then, with the help of the powerful thrust, Berserker charged out like a giant black cannon. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Noah, who was standing at the front. Whoosh! Berserker's ferocious aura rapidly rose from the axe and sword in Berserker's hands, bringing about ear-piercing whistling sounds. It was like a huge club, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a black shadow and directly chopped down on Noah's head. Such a ruthless attack was completely compatible with the name Berserker. Whoosh! Berserker's bangs were blown into a mess by the axe and sword. Facing the deadly ferocious axe and sword, Noah's expression didn't change. He didn't move at all, as if he was frightened, and stood in place. Of course, that wasn't because Noah was arrogant enough to think that he didn't need to defend against this terrifying attack. It was just that someone bravely stepped forward, and with agility not inferior to Berserker, suddenly appeared in front of Noah. Ding, 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 ding. The sound of chains clanging echoed in the air. Ryder, who had rushed in front of Noah, fiercely swung the sharp chain dagger in his hand, and instantly activated the monstrous strength skill, causing the sharp dagger to tear through the air, making a sharp sound as it met Berserker's axe and sword head-on. Clang! The chain dagger and the ferocious axe fiercely clashed together, causing a loud sound and sparks to fly everywhere. With the help of the monstrous strength skill, Ryder was able to block Berserker's powerful attack. However, Ryder wasn't the type that was good at close combat, and the monstrous strength skill also had a duration. Bang! In the midst of the explosion, Ryder, who only felt a terrifying force from the chain dagger, was forced to kneel down by the ferocious axe and sword, causing the ground to explode into pieces. He actually went head-on? Rin, who finally reacted, said. Archer. Archer didn't need Rin Tozaka's reminder. He leaped onto the top of a tall tree. Mana surged in his hands, and a black longbow appeared in his hands. The longbow looked like it was made of iron and wood. If I go head-on, it won't take long for me to be sent flying, right? Archer calmly raised the bow in his hand. Vigorous mana emerged from his body and turned into an arrow in his other hand. Then, he knocked it on the bow. So, I'll be responsible for the firepower output. Rider, remember to avoid it, I won't remind you. After saying that, dense magic gathered at the tip of Archer's arrow, and traces of electricity appeared in the air. Feeling the power brewing behind him, Rider, who was half kneeling on the broken ground, suddenly raised his head, and once again activated the monstrous strength skill. In the midst of the sound, the chain dagger madly rubbed against the ferocious axe, causing violent sparks, and at the same time, Rider struggled to support his body. Roar! Berserker seemed to have felt the magic power that was gathering around him. He let out a roar, and the veins on his sturdy arm that was holding the ferocious axe were bulging. He suddenly pressed Rider down again. That scene could only be described with one sentence. Extremely barbaric. Chapter 721. Although Rider's strength didn't reach the highest level of A, with the help of the monstrous strength skill, he could still reach a level in a very short time. However, Berserker's strength was at A+ level. Under normal circumstances, he was almost on par with Rider when he used the monstrous strength skill. However, once the plus effect appeared, even if he used the monstrous strength skill to increase his strength to a level, he still wouldn't be able to defeat Berserker. Clang! With a crisp sound of collision, Rider was sent flying by Berserker along with his chain dagger. Roar! After forcing Rider to retreat, Berserker's feet fiercely stomped on the ground. His tower-like figure burst into the sky, and in a flash, he appeared in front of Archer, who was standing on top of a tree. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness, and his ferocious axe was directly aimed at Archer's head. Looking at the situation, if Archer was hit, even if he was a servant, his brain would be splattered everywhere. Ha! However, at this moment, Archer let out a cold roar. Wang! As soon as Archer finished his words, the wind in the entire forest seemed to have solidified. Then, a strong gust of wind blew. A strong magical force mixed with the wind rapidly condensed at the tip of Archer's arrow that was aimed at Berserker. In the blink of an eye, the arrow had completely condensed. Finally, it tore through the air, and with a sharp sound, it hovered in the air. Whoosh! The arrow that contained an extremely tyrannical magical force shot down from the air. Its speed was somewhat terrifying. On the surface of the arrow was a whirlwind, as if it was condensed by the wind. Like a meteor, it pierced through the air and shot towards Berserker's direction. Because Berserker had soared into the sky, he had nowhere to borrow strength. Facing such an attack, he naturally couldn't dodge it as easily as if he was on the ground. Roar! Berserker could only open his mouth and let out a low roar. A circle of dense magical force rushed out from his body like lightning. Finally, it condensed on Berserker's axe. Berserker swung it heavily to meet the incoming meteor-like arrow. The sharp sound of the wind instantly arrived. Boom! In mid-air, a loud bang reverberated, bringing about a burst of violent flames and shock waves, causing the surrounding trees to tremble and leaves to be blown away crazily. Noah clearly saw that the explosion wasn't caused by the collision between Berserker and Archer's attack. Instead, it was caused by Archer's arrow exploding the moment it came into contact with Berserker's axe. Suddenly, in the air, a huge figure with smoke coming out of its body rapidly fell from the flames and heavily smashed into the rocks not far away. Like a cannonball, it blasted a huge crater with a diameter of more than 10 meters in the ground, causing smoke and dust to fill the air. Looking at the gradually spreading smoke and dust, Noah waved his hand, and a gust of mana stirred up a strong gale that blew away the smoke and dust. As the smoke and dust gradually dispersed, the huge crater appeared in everyone's sight. However, because the crater was rather deep, everyone could only see a faint darkness and cracks spreading around the crater. Rin Enben's voice was filled with nervousness. Did it work? No one answered Rin Enben's question. Noah's eyes suddenly turned cold as he stared at the deep crater. In the crater, there seemed to be a faint, strange magical force that was faintly emitted. Sure enough, it's not that simple. Noah's words made the faces of the others turn solemn. Mana emerged from their bodies one by one, enveloping their bodies. From afar, it looked as if there were a few figures that were emitting flames all over their bodies. This silence lasted for about a minute. As time passed, the strange magical force in the black hole became stronger and stronger. In the end, it was as thick as the air, causing Rin Enben to feel uneasy. Boom! Just as Rin Enben was feeling uneasy, suddenly, an explosive sound came from the crater. Everyone's heart couldn't help but tighten. However, before everyone's tense nerves could collapse, an extremely blurry black glow flashed out from within the pit. Its speed was so frightening that it left one speechless. It caused everyone to be stunned for an instant under that frightening speed. Soon after, their expressions changed drastically as they scattered in all directions like rabbits. At this moment, the blurry black light soared into the sky and appeared in front of Archer, who was also retreating. Archer didn't even get a clear look at the other party's appearance. He felt an extremely violent gust of wind in front of him that tore through the air and ruthlessly smashed towards him. Feeling the violent and dangerous gust of wind, Archer subconsciously raised the longbow in his hand. Pang! In the next moment, the heavy blow that tore through the air exploded on Archer's longbow. The force of the blow passed through the longbow and mercilessly bombarded Archer's body. Archer let out a painful groan as his body was heavily hit. Like a kite with a broken string, he flew into the depths of the forest. Archer! Rin Enben's face turned pale as he yelled. And this yell seemed to have attracted all the danger, causing the iron tower-like figure to look at Rin Enben with a pair of ruthless eyes. Roar! A low roar filled with violent killing intent echoed throughout the forest. Immediately, Berserker, who had turned into a blurry black shadow, rushed out in Rin Enben's direction. On the ground, Rin Enben also noticed the black shadow that was rushing towards them. Her delicate face suddenly turned pale. At this time, Rin Enben should be running, right? However, Rin Enben couldn't escape at all. Even Servant couldn't escape in front of Berserker's speed. He could barely raise his longbow and block an attack. Even if an ordinary person, even if a magician, could react in time and turn around to escape, they would only be exposing their unguarded back to the opponent and be killed on the spot. If they went all out, perhaps there was an extremely small chance of survival. As these thoughts flashed through Rin Enben's mind, she quickly suppressed the panic in her heart to prevent herself from panicking. She clenched her delicate hand, and a few gemstones appeared in her hand. Unfortunately, before Rin Enben could gather his mana, the blurry shadow appeared in front of him. A ferocious face filled with savagery appeared in Rin Enben's gem-like eyes. Roar! A roar filled with murderous intent resounded through the sky. The ferocious axe, which was even fiercer than when he was chasing after Archer, tore through the air and smashed towards Rin Enben. Rin Enben gritted her teeth in the face of this fatal attack. Her eyes and face didn't show any signs of giving up. Instead, she stubbornly stared at Berserker's figure that filled her vision and raised her hand in an attempt to make a last stand. The ferocious axe didn't slow down at all because of this scene. It was still ruthlessly smashing towards Rin Enben's direction. However, just as the ferocious axe and sword were about to collide with Rin Enben's head, another black shadow suddenly flashed through the air with a muffled thunder-like explosion. Following the flash of that black shadow, the axe and sword that were accompanied by a fierce gust of wind hit nothing but air. Rin Enben, who was supposed to be there, disappeared without a trace, and the axe fell to the ground. Bang! The ground was directly smashed, and a crater was formed. At this moment, the black shadow that flashed by suddenly appeared on top of a nearby tree. Rin Enben, who had disappeared, was lying in the other's arms, protected in the other's embrace. Chapter 722. The entire place fell silent. Not far away, Ilya, who had been smiling all this time, frowned slightly. She was like a child who was playing a game and was suddenly rudely asked to stop. Her face was filled with displeasure. On the top of the tree, Noah lowered his head and looked at Rin Enben in his arms, who didn't seem to be able to react, and said softly, "Hey, Rin Enben, are you okay?" Hearing Noah's voice, Rin Hazaka's frightened eyes finally trembled, and he murmured as if he was in a dream. You saved me?" "Nonsense, if it wasn't me who saved you, then who saved you?" Noah sighed and let go of Rin Enben. He let Rin Enben sit up straight on the top of the tree, then he turned his head and looked at Berserker, who smashed the ground with his sword. His eyes flashed with a hint of seriousness. "Although I knew that the ability value was exaggerated, I didn't expect there to be something even more exaggerated." Rin Enben was startled. He followed Noah's gaze and looked over. When he saw Berserker's current situation, he understood why Noah said that. This was because, at this very moment, on Berserker's pitch-black tower-like body, his bulging muscles were actually glowing with a red light like a burning iron. This caused Berserker's entire body to be shrouded in a murderous and ruthless aura. Waves of smoke-like red mist continuously seeped out from his body like steam, emitting chi-chi sounds. "What's that?" Rin Enben was shocked. "I don't know." Noah stared at Berserker and replied. However, Archer's attack didn't cause any damage to him. "I did see that he was injured, but now, the injury seems to be recovering rapidly. If I'm not wrong, it should be his noble phantasm." Only Noah could see that Berserker had an A-level battle skill. However, it was different from Lancer's battle skill as it represented the ability to survive. Noah clearly saw the sentence, because even if you die, you will be revived with the help of the noble phantasm that can revive you. In other words, Berserker had a noble phantasm that could revive. He was already ridiculously strong, but he could revive? Even Noah felt that it was troublesome. There's a noble phantasm with that kind of effect? Even Noah felt troubled, let alone Rin Enben. He already has such an exaggerated ability value, but he can still recover. How can he fight? That's right. Big Brother and Ling won't be able to defeat Berserker. No, it should be said that no one can defeat Berserker, Ilya said happily. If you want to know why, Berserker's real identity is Hercules from Greece. Hearing this, no matter who it was, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Hercules. They believed that as long as they had a little understanding of mythology, it was impossible for them not to know this name. He was the greatest hero in Greek mythology and was also the son of the main god Zeus, also known as Hercules. He was extremely brave and powerful. Later, he even completed 12 tasks that even the gods said were impossible to complete. After his death, he ascended to the Mount Olympus and became Hercules. Mythical stories about Hercules punishing evil and encouraging good and daring to fight had always been a theme that writers and artists liked to express. In the Western world, the word Hercules had also become a synonym for Hercules and a strong man. It was used to describe a hero with infinite strength and incomparable courage. As a heroic spirit, it was definitely at the highest level. Also, let me reveal a piece of news to you. Ilya seemed to like Noah and the others as she said with a smile. Berserker's noble phantasm is called the 12 Trials, God's Hand. It is a noble phantasm that represents immortality. With that noble phantasm, Berserker can nullify all attacks below grade B. He can also revive 11 times. So, if you don't kill Berserker 12 times, Berserker won't be destroyed. Oh, by the way, this noble phantasm has a third effect. As long as it is attacked once, it won't work a second time. Even if you use the noble phantasm to defeat Berserker once, when he revives, that noble phantasm will be useless. This news made Rin Enben's heart turn cold. It even made Noah speechless. Nullify all attacks below grade B? Revive 11 times? After being attacked once, it won't work a second time? Not to mention the effect of a single noble phantasm, even if it was split into 3 noble phantasms, it would be more than enough. Legend had it that Hercules had indeed completed 12 impossible missions, thus becoming a great hero and the god of strength. Now, that battle record had been upgraded to Hercules' noble phantasm. It made this chariot that only existed to charge and break through enemy lines completely become an existence that could charge and break through enemy lines without being shot down. For the enemy, that was simply a despairing fact. Although Noah didn't despair, the idea that he and Ryder could defeat Berserker had disappeared. Even if they could defeat Berserker once, when he stood up for the second time, Noah wouldn't be able to use the same method to defeat him. After all, if he didn't use authority, Noah's means were limited. How is it? My Berserker is very powerful, right? Ilya innocently said such a sentence. That's why you should quickly give up resisting and be killed by Berserker. After saying that, Berserker, the great hero of Greek mythology, let out a roar. His huge body was like a missile, directly rushing towards Noah and Rin Enben's direction. The sharp sound of wind breaking rang out in the forest. However, although Berserker's speed was extremely fast, Noah's senses were not ordinary. Almost at the instant Berserker moved, he reacted. His eyes flashed, and he extended his hand towards Berserker's direction. Wang! Dense magic surged, causing a beautiful magic formation to suddenly spin out. It was like a cannon, aiming at Berserker who was rushing towards him. Before Berserker could charge in front of Noah, the light from the magic formation turned into a beam of dense magic. It fell from the sky, rubbing against the air, and heavily landed on Berserker's body. Boom! A force more powerful than Archer's attack exploded, setting off violent flames and shockwaves that covered the entire forest. Berserker's smoking huge body was blown away and smashed into a mountain wall in the distance. Bang! A large part of the hard mountain wall caved in under Berserker's heavy smashing. Cracks spread out like a spider web, spreading almost half of the mountain. After suffering such a heavy blow, Berserker was enraged. His whole body glowed with a bright red light, and his injuries healed at an extremely fast speed. Surging magic power condensed on the surface of his body, causing the surrounding air to become scorching hot. Suddenly, the magic power converged. In the next second, Berserker, who had transformed into a missile, suddenly shot out with a terrifying force, causing the atmosphere to become chaotic. His target was Noah, who was at the top of the tree. Suddenly, Berserker, who was like a missile, left behind a long light red trace in the air. Noah's deep eyes gazed at Berserker, who was rushing towards him. After a while, his magic suddenly burst out, like another sun under the setting sun, emitting a dazzling magic wave. In the end, the charging mountain of flesh crashed into the sun. Boom! The sound of the explosion resounded like thunder. Chapter 723. The sky gradually began to darken. However, in the forest, the fierce battle continued. Roar! In the forest that was gradually sinking into the darkness of the moonlit night, an extremely ruthless roar reverberated throughout the entire forest. It was as if a ferocious beast from ancient times was rioting, causing people to feel fear. Whoosh! In the woods, a whistling sound of wind accompanied the brandishing of a ferocious axe and sword. The ferocious axe and sword, which were as frightening as a chainsaw, flashed through the air like the shadow of death, and ruthlessly swung toward Noah, who was standing on the treetop. Seeing Berserker swinging his deadly axe and shooting towards him like a missile, Noah narrowed his eyes. He stretched out his hand and pushed away Rin Enben, who had yet to react. After distancing himself from Noah, the magic power on his body was denser than anyone else's. It was like a flame slowly burning on Noah's body. Hum! Suddenly, Noah's body trembled. On every part of his body, the magic lines that looked like electric wires shone with a dazzling luster. They gradually spread and covered Noah's limbs except for his head and torso. The heroic spirit, whose real name was Hercules, also had the Berserker's unique berserk ability. Even if it was just a servant, Noah had to go all out without using his authority. As a result, under the strengthening of enhanced magic, the power of Noah's limbs, which were covered by the magic lines, soared, making Noah feel that his arm and leg strength had been greatly increased. Noah had told Rin Enben that he was an unqualified magician. But in fact, in terms of magic attainment, Noah was no worse than those self-proclaimed magicians. Don't forget, Noah had almost an entire system of Runi's magic, which was Runi's magic. How could he be worse than those pretentious magicians? However, Noah's Runi's magic had turned into the ability of the priest incarnation. It had completely broken away from the category of magic and became a power that could only be involved in the domain of God. Thus, Noah's magic was only left with a simple processing and a basic enhancement. However, as the saying goes, it's better to be knowledgeable than to be proficient. Although the magic spells that Noah could use now were the most basic magic spells, a magic bullet had already been upgraded into a magic cannon due to Noah's vast magic power. The strengthening magic had also been greatly enhanced due to Noah's excessively powerful magic power. Even if it was still slightly inferior to the physical ability of the Dragon Emperor incarnation that was comparable to a giant dragon, and even more inferior to the terrifying strength of the giant incarnation, but with the enhancement of enhanced magic, coupled with Noah's already good physical ability, it still allowed Noah to obtain physical strength that was beyond the human category. Noah did not dare to say that with the enhancement of enhanced magic, he would be able to compete with Berserker's terrifying strength. However, according to the value of the servant's ability value, after the enhancement of enhanced magic, Noah's strength could be compared to the highest level of a class. After the enhancement of his leg strength, Noah's agility could also be comparable to that of an A class. In this case, it was not impossible to compete with Berserker, who was good at close combat. At that moment, beautiful magic lines suddenly spread out from Noah's limbs, making Noah feel that his limbs were full of strength. With a bright look in his eyes, Noah clenched a fist, like a bow, and fiercely pulled it behind his back. Whang! The next moment, with the sound of the air vibrating, Noah's fist also surged with a brilliant golden vortex, covering Noah's entire fist. It was the annihilation strike that Noah had been using for a long time. Just now, in order to save Rin and Osaka, who was targeted by Berserker, Noah also used the leap forward that he had not used for a long time. Originally, Annihilation Strike and Leap Forward were completely useless after Noah obtained the authority of the Giant and Phoenix. But now, in the situation where Noah restrained himself from using the authority, these two combat skills were reused. With the enhancement of enhanced magic and the technique of Annihilation Strike, Noah's heart shook. As if he was holding a brilliant golden vortex, his fist directly blasted out, and actually directly collided with the ferocious axe that violently swung towards him. Bang! As soon as the two collided, a terrible turbulence burst out, causing the wind to violently surge. Noah only felt a terrible force passing through his fist, causing his whole body to shake, and Noah was sent flying. Bang! The tree that Noah was on seemed to disintegrate and suddenly burst open. As a result, even with the enhancement of enhanced magic and the technique of Annihilation Strike, Noah was still unable to match Berserker, who had a strength value of A+. However, even so, Berserker's huge ferocious axe was forced back by Noah's punch. What? Seeing this scene with his own eyes, Rin and Osaka, who was pushed down from the top of the tree by Noah and awkwardly rolled on the ground, was stunned. Liar. Not to mention Rin and Osaka, even Ilya was shocked, her pair of eyes opened to the maximum. Roar. Berserker still let out a violent and murderous roar, and his huge body once again shot out like a missile, directly towards Noah, who was sent flying backwards. That speed was worthy of the highest level of agility, a grade. He swept towards Noah's direction like lightning. The huge axe fiercely swung out. It brought a terrible explosion, turning into a terrifying wind storm, and heavily fell on Noah's body. In a hurry, Noah, who was still flying backwards in the air, could only raise his hands and cross them above his head. Bang! Berserker's merciless attack directly hit Noah's raised arms, creating a shockwave, and chopped Noah down from the air. However, Noah was not someone who would only suffer losses. Although it was not as shocking as when he used the Dragon Emperor transformation and obtained a divine skill that far surpassed his instincts and wildness, Noah had trained his combat skills since he was young, and had even digested various combat skills in various worlds, so his skills were not bad. After being chopped to the ground by Berserker's sword, Noah's eyes flashed with a fierce light, and with a turn of his body, one of his legs turned into a black shadow like a wild whip, suddenly swinging over and whipping Berserker's body as fast as lightning. Dong! The violent whip leg heavily smashed into Berserker's waist, directly exploding out with a muffled sound, and Berserker's huge body was sent flying. Suddenly, in mid-air, one big and one small figure turned into a blurry afterimage, one heavily smashed into the ground, and the other was sent flying like an arrow released from a bow. Bang! Smoke and dust rose from the ground, and cracks appeared everywhere. Pa, 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 pa. Berserker, who was sent flying, smashed dozens of trees along the way, and finally, the trunk of a huge tree broke in the middle, and he slid down from above. However, almost at the same time when the ground was smashed to the point where smoke and dust rose in all directions, and the trees were smashed apart one by one, the two figures, one big and one small, shot out explosively. One charged forward like a chariot, while the other had a whirlpool-like gorgeous airflow under her feet as she swiftly shot out and heavily collided with each other. Bang 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 bang. The giant holding the ferocious axe and sword and the fist covered in the whirlpool-like airflow bombarded each other, causing deafening muffled sounds. Roar. The berserk roar continued to sound. Ha! A cold and stern voice echoed in the air. The two figures, one big and one small, collided head-on with each other in the most violent manner, causing the ground to crack inch by inch, and the air to explode sharply. The scene was shocking. Rin and Osaka and Ilya were completely dumbfounded. Therefore, the two didn't notice. Noah has always been the one who has been forced back in the face of the violent bombardment. Chapter 724. Pung. It was another violent clash, causing a muffled sound that made people's hearts shrink. Waves of wind blew in all directions. Under the ferocious attack of the axe and sword, even with the annihilation strike technique, Noah seemed to be wearing a sturdy gauntlet. He was not cut open by the axe and sword. However, from the huge axe and sword, the terrifying strength of the A+ level was transmitted to Noah's body. It made Noah feel as if he was hitting a wall made of steel, and he was constantly pushed back. Pung. When he was pushed back, his feet directly stepped on the ground and exploded. It was as if a small bomb had exploded, creating a small crater. The crater was surrounded by cracks, like a spider web. Even so, Noah still resisted the numbness from his fists and the terrifying strength from the axe and continued to attack Berserker. In other people's eyes, Noah and Berserker were fighting head-on like savages. However, only Noah knew that Berserker was not just blindly swinging his sword and relying on brute force to suppress his opponent. At least, in Noah's eyes, Berserker's huge and ferocious axe and sword were like a windmill that was swinging from all directions. Every swing followed the most mysterious, shortest, and most difficult to defend against. This kind of technique, a person who had completely fallen into madness would not be able to use it. That is to say, even if he had gone berserk, as a great hero in Greek mythology, the sword skills of the god of strength were still engraved on his body. It was like his instinct, even if he had gone berserk, he would still be able to use it. Therefore, Noah was not only facing a giant with astonishing brute force, but also a hero with superb sword skills. In this kind of situation, to be able to follow Berserker's sword attacks and accurately clash with Berserker's sword was enough to show that Noah's fighting skills were not ordinary. Unfortunately, Noah was still at a disadvantage. Even with the enhanced magic and the annihilation strike technique, Noah's strength was still not as good as the A+ level Berserker. In terms of combat skills, as the great hero who had completed 12 impossible tasks in Greek mythology, the knowledge that he had learned in his life was naturally better than the combat skills that Noah had diligently practiced for less than 20 years. His strength was not comparable. His technique was not comparable. How could Noah not be at a disadvantage? There was only one thing that Noah had an advantage. That is, Noah was calm and rational. Berserker, on the other hand, was in a berserk state. Therefore, Noah was waiting. Waiting for Berserker to reveal a flaw. Peng peng. Under such circumstances, the ruthless and malevolent axe and the fist that was covered with a vortex of air continued to clash against each other. Waves of violent wind and gales shook out, causing the surrounding leaves that were scattered all over the ground to flutter back and forth, pervading the entire forest. After a while, Rin Enben and Ilya finally recovered from the shock. They could see who had the advantage between Noah and Berserker. It's useless. Ilya only had eyes for Noah as she stared at Noah, who was fighting with Berserker. My Berserker is the strongest, no one can defeat him. This isn't good. Rin and Osaka's expression also became gloomy. If this continues, that guy will not be able to hold on. Just as this thought flashed through Rin Enben's mind, a weak voice echoed in his mind. Rin, are you okay? Archer? Rin Enben was stunned, then he was delighted. Idiot, I should be the one saying that. I'm fine, but I took a direct hit from Berserker. My head is dizzy, and I won't be able to stand up for a while. Archer forcefully pulled himself together and said to Rin Enben. So, Rin, you have to do something. Me? Rin Enben was stunned. As you can see, even though that man is on par with the great hero, he is still at a disadvantage. Moreover, he is only a human. Once he enters a battle of attrition, he will run out of mana and stamina eventually. On the other hand, the servant is an existence that can convert mana into movement. As long as he has enough mana, his stamina will never end. If this continues, that man will run out of stamina first. Archer calmly analyzed the situation. Moreover, that man seems to be waiting for Berserker to reveal a flaw. However, Berserker's real body is that of the great Greek hero, Hercules. Even if he is in a frenzy, the skills and instincts engraved in his body are still very amazing. It is very likely that he will reveal a flaw in the next second. It is also very likely that he will not be able to wait until that man's strength is exhausted. Therefore, you must help that man. Rin Enben immediately raised his head, and once again looked at the two people who were engaged in a violent battle, his eyes flashing. Both Rin Enben and Archer didn't know. In fact, Noah had a self-created respiratory art. Even though his stamina wasn't limitless, if he continued to use it, it wouldn't be a problem until the next morning. That was why Noah chose to wait. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen to fight in such a disadvantageous situation. Archer, who didn't know about this, made the right judgment. Don't worry, you can do whatever you want. If you seize the opportunity, you will definitely be able to create an opening for that man. Archer's voice echoed in Rin Enben's mind. Don't forget, there is still a servant who disappeared from the scene. After being reminded by Archer, Rin Enben's heart shook. He took a deep breath and stood up. I understand, Archer. You seized the opportunity. I understand, Archer said, and then went silent. At this moment, the situation on the battlefield finally changed. Just as Noah and Berserker were bombarding each other in the most violent form, like two chariots that were constantly colliding with each other, Noah and Berserker bombarded each other repeatedly. Whoosh! Behind Berserker's back, a sharp dagger connected to a chain broke through the air like an arrow and shot towards Berserker's thick back with an ear-piercing sound. Roar! Berserker, who was preparing to swing his sword again, instinctively paused. The ferocious axe in his hand let out a furious roar. He suddenly turned around and viciously swung his sword at the chain dagger that was shooting towards him. Clank! The sound of metal clashing echoed in the forest. The short sword with monster strength was knocked away by Berserker's sword and returned to Rider, who was standing on top of a tree. At the same time, Archer's voice rang in Rin Dosaka's mind. He had been observing the scene with clairvoyance and mind's eye. Rin Enben's expression froze. In his hand, he threw the gemstones that he had been holding all this while towards Berserker's head. Bang! The gemstones exploded and turned into a dense light that enveloped Berserker's body. Immediately, Berserker felt like he was being pressed down by a heavy mountain. His whole body suddenly sank, and even the sword in his hand drooped down. Noah suddenly raised his head. His deep eyes flashed with a terrifying expression. Now! The magic patterns that spread all over Noah's body suddenly contracted and gathered in one of Noah's hands. Dense magic surged from Noah's palm. In an instant, the hand that was shining with magic patterns pierced towards Berserker's heart. Poochie! Blood splattered into the sky. Chapter 725. Poochie. Under the stab of Noah's palm, which was covered with the magic patterns of enhanced magic, Berserker's broad chest was directly pierced through by Noah where his heart was. Roar. The roar that belonged to Berserker resounded through the night sky. There seemed to be a hint of berserk in his voice that only an injured beast would have. After all, he was still a servant who had the ability to continue fighting. Even though his heart had been pierced, Berserker still had the ability to move. After roaring angrily, he raised the huge and ferocious axe in his hand and swung it at Noah's head with lightning speed. Noah's hand had already sunk into his heart. Feeling the oppressive wind coming from above his head, Noah actually closed his eyes. Buzz! In the next moment, Noah's hand that pierced Berserker's heart flashed with a burst of magical light. I don't believe that you won't die if I directly release the magic cannon in your body. After finishing his words, a dazzling magical light shone from Berserker's body. Bang! In just a moment, Berserker's tall and strong body directly exploded into a pile of minced meat. Under the cover of the sky full of flames and the rich magical light, he was annihilated into pieces of charcoal. Then, Noah's figure shot out from the sky full of flames and the rich magical light and landed on the ground. With one hand on the ground, his body half crouched down. After rubbing against the ground for a very long distance, he finally stopped. And in the sky full of flames and the rich magical light, Berserker's lower body was still standing there. He was like a giant who would never surrender to his fate. He stood there without falling, which really confirmed his reputation as a great hero. However, no matter how strong he was, in the absence of mana, even if his relic had the ability to nullify all attacks below grade B, he would still be dead if half of his body was blown up by Noah's mana cannon, which was directly released from his body with all his might. As the great hero of the myths, Berserker of Hercules had finally died once. Yes. He had only died once. Under the watchful eyes of Noah, Rin Anaka, Rider, and Archer, the remaining half of Berserker's body began to glow red. Chi, chi. A sizzling sound like a flame being extinguished began to sound from the remaining half of Berserker's body. In the next second, it was as if time had reversed. Around the remaining half of Berserker's body, pieces of his body began to appear out of thin air. They gathered together and gradually formed the missing half of Berserker's body, allowing Berserker to recover to his original state. Roar! With a flash of red light in his eyes, Berserker suddenly raised his head and let out a roar that shook the air. Seeing this, Rin Enben couldn't help but take a step back as her expression changed. So, it's possible to resurrect. Even Noah couldn't help but frown as a troubled look appeared on his face. It was a legendary hero that could be resurrected 11 times. It had to be killed 12 times before it completely disappeared. It was the highest level of heroic spirit. If that was the case, it would still be fine. The problem was that the 12 trials, God's hand, not only could resurrect Berserker and nullify attacks that were below B level, it could also nullify all attacks that Berserker had received. In other words, Noah, who had just fired a mana cannon into Berserker's body, wouldn't be able to do anything to Berserker if he were to use it again. The real problem isn't Hercules, but his noble phantasm. Noah's frown deepened. If we don't find a way to deal with the 12 trials, God's hand, it would be extremely difficult to defeat Berserker. Master. Rider appeared from the fog and arrived behind Noah. He was also looking at Berserker who was roaring in front of him. There was a hint of heaviness in his voice. Do you need me to do it? The meaning of this sentence was not that Rider wanted to participate in the battle from now on, but that he wanted to use all his skills and relic to fight against Berserker. Noah also stood up and looked at Berserker. He did not turn his head and said, "There's no other way. Since the opponent has already taken out his relic, if we don't return the favor, it would be unreasonable." "Understood." Ryder immediately responded. "Archer." On the side, Rin Enben also ordered his servant. "Can you move again? If not, I can only use the command spell." Only the master could use the command spell. Not only could it restrict the servant, but it could also turn the command into power, allowing the servant to exert extraordinary strength. Even if Archer could not move, as long as Rin Enben used the command spell and gave the command to defeat the opponent, then even if Archer could not move, his body would be driven to fight under the command of the command spell. Knowing this, Archer could only helplessly say, "That's the only way." Just when Noah and the others were ready to use their skills, Ilya, who had been silently looking at Noah, suddenly laughed. She laughed very happily. "Interesting, really interesting. Undoubtedly, you're just a human, but you can directly confront my berserker and even kill him once. Big brother, I didn't know you were so interesting." Ilya's bell-like laughter made everyone, including Noah, stare blankly for a moment. Then, they looked at each other in confusion. It was because the trace of cruelty and killing intent that had existed until now in Ilya's innocent voice had disappeared. "Okay, it's decided." Ilya thought of something and ordered Berserker. "Come back first, Berserker." Hearing Ilya's words, Berserker's violent aura gradually began to dissipate. The bulging muscles on his body also slowly relaxed. Holding the huge ferocious axe and sword, he stepped back with loud footsteps and returned behind Ilya. Like a loyal guard, he no longer made a sound. Seeing this, not to mention Rin Enben, even Noah narrowed his eyes and looked at Ilya. "What do you mean by this?" "I just don't want to fight anymore." Ilya put her small hands behind her back and closed her eyes with a smile. She seemed to be in a very good mood. "I thought that this Holy Grail war would be very boring, but since there's such an interesting person like Big Brother, it would be a pity to kill you now. So, I don't want to fight anymore. I'll slowly play with Big Brother in the future." After saying this, Ilya seemed to have thought of something and said to Noah, "However, this forest is my territory. My villa is here. Big Brother, you can't suddenly barge in like today. Otherwise, I'll get angry again." Leaving this sentence, Ilya turned around and skipped away from the scene. Looking at Ilya's petite figure gradually disappearing into the distance and recalling Ilya's words, Noah was silent for a moment before looking at Rin Enben. "You actually brought me to the enemy's base?" Rin Enosaka's face also stiffened after hearing Ilya's words. When she heard Noah's words, her face immediately burned. She crossed her arms and turned her head away. "What? What can I do? Sakura's safety is the most important thing. Since it's the most important thing, can I trouble you to find a safer place to talk?" So annoying. It's because it's the most important thing that I messed up. Undoubtedly, the second and third important things can be solved perfectly. But the most important thing can't be done properly. Noah finally understood. The young lady of the Enben family in front of him was a troublemaker who would drop the ball at critical moments. Chapter 726. In a restaurant in Fuyuki City, Noah and Rin Enosaka sat opposite each other. One had a cup of black coffee in front of him, and the other had a cup of black tea in front of him. One was speechless, and the other was sullen. The sullen one was of course Rin Enosaka. This girl seemed to still be vexed that she had brought Noah into the Baron family's headquarters, causing Ilya to attack with Berserker, causing everyone to fall into a bitter battle. However, if it was Noah, he would probably be annoyed too. After all, Rin Enosaka actually knew. She knew that the Arensberg mansion was in the depths of the forest, and she also knew that it was the enemy's base. In the end, because of Mitsuyama Sakura, Rin Enosaka forgot about this matter and foolishly brought Noah into Ilya's territory, leading to Ilya's attack. Originally, Noah thought that Ilya just happened to be active in the forest. Who knew that he would bring Berserker out and threaten to kill everyone as soon as he appeared? It was all because Rin Enben brought Noah into Ilya's territory, causing her to think that Noah and Rin Enben were here to cause trouble. That was why she appeared. How should he put it? She even forgot such an important matter. Isn't Rin and Osaka too much? In any case, Rin and Osaka would screw up on the most important matter. Noah thoroughly experienced it and firmly remembered it in his heart, so as to avoid being tricked by this girl in the future. Noah sighed when he saw that Rin Tozaka was going to continue to be annoyed. Then, as the result of luckily escaping a disaster, and also as the price for causing trouble, Miss N. Osaka, do you want to reward me with a meal? After that, although Rin N. Osaka was annoyed, she didn't let Noah go. Instead, she invited Noah here as if she had something to say. I know that it's all my fault, but it has already happened. It's useless to apologize. It's better to talk about something useful. Rin Enben finally recovered from his vexed state. He looked straight at Noah and asked. I want to ask you, do you have a way to deal with Berserker? It seems that even though the process was quite unpleasant, Rin Anaka still felt threatened by Ilya's servant. Or rather, no one would think that Berserker was not a threat, right? Not only did he have such an exaggerated ability value, but he also had such a foul relic. To put it bluntly, even Noah felt that in this Holy Grail war, if it was a one-on-one battle, there should not be a stronger servant than Berserker. Noah was actually quite confident in his rider's abilities. However, after today's battle, even Noah felt that it would be difficult for Ryder to defeat Berserker even if he used all his skills and relics. Thus, Noah said bluntly. No, that guy just happened to hit my weak spot. It's not a problem to fight evenly, but I don't have the confidence to defeat him. With Noah's physique, he was not afraid of any mystical threats in the realm of God. However, Berserker was an expert in hand-to-hand combat. Noah did not lack the confidence to deal with Berserker without the use of his authority. However, if he wanted to defeat Berserker, Noah dared not say that he had 100% confidence in defeating him. Even with Ryder's full power, it should not be a problem to completely suppress Berserker. However, it would be a different story if he wanted to defeat Berserker. Therefore, for Noah, Berserker was also very difficult to deal with. The difficult part was that Berserker was simply immortal and could not be killed. If we don't think of a way to defeat that relic, it would be impossible for us to win. Noah shook his head. Although Ryder and I have yet to use our trump cards, we're not sure if they'll work on Berserker who has that relic. So, if you're asking me if I have a way to deal with him, my answer is yes, but I can't guarantee that it'll work. You still have a trump card that you haven't used? Rin was dumbfounded when he heard this unexpected news. Where did this monster come from? Not only did he have the ability to fight Berserker head-on, but he also had a trump card that he had not used yet. In addition, he mentioned that he had a trump card that was effective against magicians. This man in front of him was no less difficult to deal with than Berserker. If that was the case, this man's servant had not used his relic yet, right? As he thought about this, Rin felt more and more stressed. He was even a little flustered and exasperated. Damn it, why isn't Archer that powerful? As soon as he finished his sentence, Archer, who was in his spiritual form, spoke in a displeased tone. I'm really sorry that I can't help you. Forget it, we still have a command spell that we haven't used. It's not like we don't have any other means. Rin waved his hand and then remembered. Oh yeah, I seem to have used one of my command spells. Only after hearing this did Noah realize that there was a command spell on the back of Rin's hand that was blurring. That was the proof that it was used. You still have the nerve to say that? Archer's voice sounded again. You actually wasted a command incantation on something like, obey everything I say. Ling, what do you want me to say to you? For servants, the restriction of the command spell was also different. For example, the more vague the command was, the lower the effect. If it was an instantaneous command or a specific command, it would have a high degree of coercion. For example, a command like, come here, could even be used to teleport through space. If the execution of the command was too long, or the range was too wide, the effect would be reduced. If a command like, obey everything I say, was effective, then there would be no need for 3 command incantations to exercise the authority of 3 commands. Only 1 command incantation was needed, and the servant would continue to obey. Why would there be any need to worry about the servant's betrayal or disobedience? Therefore, this command was almost useless. In other words, if Rin gave such an order, then it was really a waste of a command spell. "You're so annoying, who told you to be so arrogant?" Rin said in a bad mood. "Moreover, it's not completely useless. You also said that as long as it's not something that you resist from the bottom of your heart, then there's no way to disobey me, right? Since it's something that I don't resist from the bottom of my heart, then even if I don't use the command spell, I will still listen to you, right?" Archer sighed heavily. "So, in terms of results, it's still a waste." Hearing the conversation between the two, Noah was speechless again. This Rin Enben was even more unreasonable than Noah thought. And then? Noah could only change the topic. "Now that you know what I'm doing, what are your plans?" "That's right, I do plan to do so." Rin Enben's expression turned serious. "I want to work with you for the time being." "Work together?" Noah raised an eyebrow. "You mean, the two of us will work together during the Holy Grail War? Although you have a lot of methods that I don't have, but against Berserker, you also don't have the confidence to win, right?" Rin Enben nodded. "If that's the case, then let's work together. This way, the chances of winning against Berserker will be higher, right?" Hearing this, Noah muttered to himself for a moment before replying. "Ryder, what do you think?" Noah had just asked when Ryder, who was also in spirit form, immediately spoke. "I'll let Master decide." Noah slightly frowned as he fell into deep thought. "Didn't you say that you didn't want Sakura to see us fight?" Rin Tozaka asked slyly. "Then, if we work together, it should be a good choice, right?" This sentence made Noah frown. He was a bit unhappy. "You're using this as an excuse. But it's also a fact, isn't it?" Rin Enben shrugged. "What do you think? That's realistic, right?" This time, Noah was helpless. This Rin Enben really knew how to take advantage of loopholes. Chapter 727. On a high hill in Fuyuki City, there was a mansion that was as big as the mansion. The walls were covered with vines and looked like they had been there for a long time. Currently, there was only one person living in such a manor house. Compared to the size of the mansion, the number of people living here was pitifully small. It was so small that it could not even be described as luxurious. This mansion was the mansion of the Enosaka family, Rin Enosaka's home. The manager of the spirit vein in Fuyuki City lived here. At this time, the sky was completely dark. In the hall on the second floor of the manor house, Noah walked around the vast Western-style hall. Finally, he stopped in front of a table and cast his eyes on it. Over there was a framed photograph that was placed on top of it. The photo seemed to be a family portrait. He was a very handsome man. She looked like a virtuous woman. There was also a young girl who looked very happy. These 3 people made up the family portrait in front of Noah. It showed the structure of the Enosaka family in front of Noah. Noah recognized them at a glance. The little girl was Rin Enosaka when she was young. So, the man and woman next to her should be Rin Enosaka's parents. However, Noah didn't see half a shadow of such parents after entering Enosaka's house. Obviously, Rin Enosaka's parents were not here. Where did Rin Enosaka's parents go? Noah did not ask this question. The reason was simple. As a magician, Rin Enosaka's parents must be related to the magic world. Living in a world full of lunatics, Noah could only think of one reason why Rin Enosaka's parents were not at home. They were dead. If that was the case, what was the point of asking? At this time, Rin Enosaka pushed the door open with a cup of hot black tea in her hand. "Sorry, there's only black tea in the house." you seem to like coffee, right? It's okay. Black tea is fine too. Noah turned around and sat down on the sofa. Some of my friends like black tea too. I don't hate it. In the former Kyuji mansion, there was Yuju who liked black tea very much. At that time, Noah drank black tea almost every day. If Ching-zi hadn't successfully transitioned Noah into a coffee fanatic out of bad intentions, Noah would still be drinking black tea now. Lilith, on the other hand, was very fond of milk tea, Erica liked cappuccino, and Alice was also a fan of black tea. Even Leah and the others usually preferred black tea. Noah got used to it after a while. Is that so? Rin and Osaka put the black tea cup in front of Noah and spoke to a place where there was no one around. If it's Archer and Ryder, it shouldn't be necessary, right? With that, Archer and Ryder dispelled their spiritual forms behind Rin and Osaka and Noah respectively and appeared in the air. Ryder was as quiet as ever. He stood behind Noah like a loyal guard, not moving an inch. Archer glanced at the cup of hot black tea on the table, crossed his arms, and closed his eyes. Undoubtedly, you only prepared a cup of black tea. You didn't prepare any for us, Rin. Rin and Osaka tilted his head. So you want it? No, I don't want to drink it. Archer sighed. But this is a question of sincerity, right? Don't mind it, don't mind it. Rin and Osaka waved his hand nonchalantly and quickly threw Ryder and Archer to the back of his mind. He looked at Noah seriously. You said you have a way to deal with Berserker. What's the specific plan? The surrounding atmosphere suddenly became solemn. Looking at Rin and Osaka's serious expression, Noah picked up the cup of black tea, took a sip, and said, There are 3 methods. The simplest method, the stupidest method, and the most reliable method, but I'm not sure if it'll work. You can come up with so many plans to deal with a monster like that. I underestimated you. Rin and Osaka patted his cheeks and pulled himself together. Then, let's talk about the simplest method. The simplest method, which is also the most impractical method, is to directly deal with Berserker's master, Elia Field. Noah gave such an answer. As everyone knows, the reason why servants are able to maintain their forms in this world is because of their master's magic. As long as they lose their master, no matter how strong the servants are, they can only grieve. Furthermore, Berserker doesn't have the ability to act alone. So, rather than dealing with Berserker, it is more practical to deal with Iliosphère. But you also said that it's the most impractical method, right? Rin and Osaka seemed to understand Noah's meaning and sighed. Unless we can immediately launch an attack the moment we face Iliosphère and finish him off with the first strike, we won't be able to avoid Berserker and take down Iliosphère. Therefore, that was the simplest and most impractical method. It was also known to all masters and servants. After all, every master had a command seal on them. If they chose to use this method, they would have to deal with Elia Field in the first strike. Otherwise, when Elia Field reacted, she could use the command seal to summon Berserker back to her side. That was also the reason why Noah didn't directly attack Elia and chose to fight Berserker instead. Besides, Berserker's instinct was stronger than his rationality. If he attacked Ilya, who knows what kind of stimulation that monster would receive. Therefore, this method was both the simplest and the least practical. And the stupidest method is to slowly wear down Berserker's noble phantasm's resurrection count. Noah spread his hands. If we have overwhelming power on our side, the so-called immortal body is not that difficult to deal with at all. We can slowly wear down Berserker, or even directly take away several of his lives at once. It was just like Phoenix in the world of Demon High School. Riesel, who also had an undying body, couldn't even withstand a single blow in front of such overwhelming power. It's a pity. Although we're working together, we don't have overwhelming power, right? Rin Enben frowned. Or, does your rider have a decisive noble phantasm that can achieve this goal? Indeed, but even if we use it, taking away a few of Berserker's lives wouldn't be a problem. However, it's not ideal to directly kill Berserker. Noah shook his head. To be honest, I'm not even sure if a noble phantasm that can take away 12 of Berserker's lives really exists. That means, our best choice is the most reliable method that you mentioned, but we can't be sure if it'll work. Rin Enben's tone was slightly heavy. What's that method? Actually, I've encountered an immortal body quite a few times. Noah supported his face with his hands and leaned his elbows on the armrest. His eyes flickered slightly. No matter which immortal body it is, the most fundamental weakness is the spirit. Spirit? Rin Enben was slightly stunned. Then, he reacted and his eyes lit up. Do you mean that although Berserker's body can be resurrected, there's no way to resurrect his spirit? I have a method that can directly destroy the opponent's spirit. Noah said. If Berserker's spirit can't be resurrected with a noble phantasm, as long as his spirit is destroyed, even if his body isn't destroyed, what's left is just a shell that won't move. Chapter 728. For Noah, an immortal body was not that difficult to deal with. That might be troublesome, but only to the extent of being troublesome. Berserker's noble phantasm could not only nullify attacks below B rank, but it could also nullify attacks that had been used once. It was equivalent to an immortal body, not to mention the fact that it could be resurrected. It was simply cheating. However, regardless of whether it was an immortal body or resurrection, Noah had encountered them many times. Therefore, Noah was not surprised that the great hero in Greek mythology had such an ability, even though he found it troublesome. Of course, there were ways to deal with it. Destroy the opponent's spirit. The body was immortal, but the spirit could not be immortal, right? The body could be resurrected, but the spirit could not be resurrected, right? If he used one of the 3 major spells of the fairy tale, it could directly destroy the opponent's mind. It was a super spell known as the super trial spell, the fairy law. It was possible to destroy Berserker's mind in one fell swoop and turn him into a living dead. After knowing that Noah had such a method, Rin Enben was surprised, but at the same time, he also noticed a problem. Since you said that you are not sure if it will work, there should be some drawbacks, right? Smart. Noah smiled bitterly. To be honest, although I have such a method, I can't guarantee that it will be able to destroy the servant's spirit. As he said that, Noah even explained himself. Originally, the servant's spirit was like a spirit. As a heroic spirit, it is easy to imagine how strong his spirit and spirit are. In addition, Berserker is the Hercules who completed the 12 impossible missions. With such an extreme experience, his endurance and spirit are immeasurable. I am not sure if my method can destroy Berserker's spirit in one fell swoop. After hearing Noah's words, Rin Enben was silent. Even Ryder and Archer had a slightly troubled expression on their faces. Presumably, they weren't sure if Noah's method would succeed in one fell swoop. Of course, the strength of this method is related to my magic and how well I can use it. With my magic, I am more or less confident that I can destroy the spirit of a heroic spirit. Noah smiled. He brought both good and bad news. The problem is that this method requires a lot of time. You've seen Berserker's ability to charge forward. If you're careless, you'll die, let alone use a method that requires a long time to prepare. Therefore, if we really need to use this method, we can only rely on you guys to buy us some time. This was one of the reasons why Noah chose to work with Rin Enben. If he only wanted to deal with Berserker, Noah and Ryder would be enough. There was no need to work with Rin Enben. However, if he wanted to defeat Berserker, it was necessary to work with Rin Enben. When the time comes, Ryder will have to protect me from other factors. Only you two can deal with Berserker, Noah said to Rin Enben. As long as you can buy time, our chances of winning are not small. After he finished speaking, the entire place suddenly fell silent. Rin Enben seemed to be considering the feasibility of the plan. In the end, he nodded and looked at Archer. Archer, are you confident that you can defeat Berserker? If you want me to defeat that monster, even I wouldn't dare to say that I am confident. Archer closed his eyes and smiled. But if I say that I can't defeat Berserker and buy time, won't you be more disappointed in me? Let's be clear. I have never been disappointed in you. Of course, there are many things that I want to complain about. Rin Enben smiled. So, Archer, I will depend on your performance. Yeah, this is really hard work. Archer shrugged helplessly. I can only say that I will try my best. Have you decided? Noah shrugged. Then, our cooperation is confirmed. Yes. Rin Enben smiled and moved his head forward. He looked straight into Noah's dark eyes. Thank you for your guidance, Mr. Noah. Just call me Noah. Noah glanced at Rin Enben. If you are polite to me now, I won't be used to it. That's it then. Rin Enben nodded in satisfaction and stretched his back. As for how to deal with the other masters and servants, we will come up with a plan after we gather enough information. Deal with the other masters and servants? Noah was taken aback. After hesitating for a while, he asked with uncertainty. Don't tell me that our cooperation doesn't stop until we get rid of Berserker? Yes, that was my plan from the beginning. Rin Enben asked in a strange tone. But you don't want Sakura to see us kill each other, right? I do have such a plan. Noah raised an eyebrow. However, you wouldn't choose not to fight me because of this reason, right? How is that possible? Rin Enben's relaxed expression slowly disappeared. He looked at Noah with a serious expression. As the daughter of the Enben family, my goal is to win this Holy Grail war. The Holy Grail only belongs to one person. My victory with you will only be delayed until the end. From Rin Enben's words, Noah felt a strong sense of mission. That's right, it was a sense of mission. For Rin and Osaka, this Holy Grail war should be very special, right? After all, the Enben family was one of the 3 magician families that founded the Holy Grail war. Their biggest wish was to obtain the Holy Grail and reach the origin. To be honest, Noah didn't think that Rin Enben was the kind of normal magician who would do anything to reach the origin. However, Rin Enben should have already realized that he had to embark on a bloody path in the future, right? Obtaining the Holy Grail was only Rin Enben's duty as a child of the Enben family. As for what he should do after obtaining the Holy Grail, Noah didn't see such an obvious goal from Rin Enben's words and actions. Therefore, Rin Enben really only participated in the Holy Grail war for victory. Noah felt that he had misunderstood Rin Enben. Originally, he thought that Rin Enben was just a magician who hadn't made his debut yet, just like Aoko. She had a sense of awareness but was immature, and would even drop the ball at crucial moments. Even her personality was affected by her emotions. Otherwise, she wouldn't have used a command spell, just because Archer was too arrogant. But now, it seemed that even if that was the case, Rin Enben still had a resolute side that Noah couldn't deny. She really was a girl who was similar to that immature magician Aoko Aozaki in all aspects. Because of this, Noah really couldn't bear to see Rin Enben embark on a path of killing for the sake of magic. Yes. Just like Aoko Aozaki. I have indeed received your message. Noah said calmly. As you wish, until the final battle arrives, let's maintain a cooperative relationship. That would be for the best. Rin Enben smiled lightly and turned around to look at Izichin. After a long time, Rin Enben, whose back was facing Noah, finally spoke. You really don't plan on doing anything to Sakura? Noah, who had just picked up his teacup, paused for a moment, then took a sip of black tea and replied. No. Is that so? Rin Enben nodded. That's good. This time, there was less suspicion and more trust. Chapter 729. After coming up with a plan to deal with Berserker, Noah left Inaka's house. Under the dark moonlight, he walked out of Inaka's house. Rin Inaka was considerate enough to send Noah out of her house. It's already late at night. This is the time when the master and the servant are active. Standing in front of her house, Rin Dosaka flicked her beautiful black hair and said to Noah, who just walked out of the house. You have to be careful. Don't meet other masters and servants. The most fundamental part of magic was concealment. The so-called magic was actually a power that had already been determined in the origin. That power was limited. The more people who used it, the less power each magician would get. Therefore, in order to prevent magic from completely disappearing, the Magic Association set the most basic rule of concealment. They were even willing to kill witnesses. This was the same for the Church of Holy Light. To the Church of Holy Light, magic, which could only be performed by God in their teachings, was simply heresy. Therefore, the relationship between the Magic Association and the Church of Holy Light was very bad. In the past, they were constantly at war, but now, they were only in a state of truce. They could start another war at any time. Therefore, the Church of Holy Light naturally didn't want to see magic being exposed in front of ordinary people. After all, if everyone knew that the so-called miracles of God could also be achieved by themselves, and that there was no need to pray to God in order to obtain them, then the most fundamental belief of the Holy Church would be shaken, and the teachings of the Holy Church would be questioned. Therefore, in terms of concealment, the Magic Association and the Church of Holy Light had the same point of view. Because of this, the Church of Holy Light would also consider concealment first. This Holy Grail war that was under the supervision of the Church of Holy Light was naturally the same. Since two of the biggest powers in the world had already decided on such a course of action, then no matter how arrogant they were, they had to consider concealment first. Naturally, when there weren't many people out at night, it was the time when the master and the servant were most active. I don't need you to remind me. Noah nodded in agreement. I've already fought a monster like Berserker today. I don't want to meet another difficult opponent. At least let me go today. To me, you're also a monster if you can fight a monster like that, Rindosaka said to Noah as she rolled her eyes. She seemed to have thought of something. Speaking of which, you haven't been to the church yet, right? Don't you plan to report to them first? At the very least, you're a supervisor. I really don't intend to do that, Noah said bluntly. Even though it's just my personal opinion, I really don't like priests. So, let's just forget about it. In another parallel world of this world, Noah had met a terrible priest like Wen Bing Yongli, who had an abnormal value system. And in the world of Demon High School, that disgusting priest, Freddy, made Noah's impression of priests drop to the lowest. How could Noah like the priest? In this regard, Rin Enbin actually agreed. What a coincidence, I also have the same idea. However, if you go there and report, you can at least get some information, such as the number of masters and servants that have appeared, Rin Enbin said. Since you don't plan to go to the church, then I'll tell you by the way. At present, in Fuyuki City, including you and me, there are already 5 confirmed masters. The servants that have been summoned are Lancer, Archer, Rider, Caster, and Berserker. Only Saber and Assassin haven't been summoned yet. No, it should be said that they might have been summoned, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. Rin Enbin reminded. So, you should be careful. Noah nodded thoughtfully and smiled at Rin Enbin. I understand, but you don't need to worry about me. At least, compared to me, you should be more worried about yourself. You're still as confident as ever. Be careful not to fail miserably. Not everyone will face you head-on like Berserker. Rin Enbin threw such a sentence. Still the same sentence, you should be careful. Lancer, Archer, Rider, Caster, and Berserker? On the way back to the apartment, Noah secretly muttered. I have already met Lancer, but his master didn't appear. Berserker's master is Alicia Field. So, I haven't met Caster yet, right? That being said, Noah was not afraid of Caster. No matter what, even if he didn't use his authority, Noah was also a God Slayer. The mystical power that didn't reach the realm of God was ineffective in front of his curse resistance. And Caster, as the name suggested, was a magician. As a famous heroic spirit in myths and legends, the magician who could sit on the caster's position must have a high level of magic attainment that could be imagined. However, after all, it was just a servant's avatar, not the real body. Even if there was magic that could cause damage to God's capital, for Noah, Castor's threat was much smaller than the other servants. As for the remaining saber and assassin, Noah needed to be wary of saber. As the one with the highest requirement for ability value among the 7 servants, it was also the strongest job class among the 7 servants under normal circumstances. The other party's close combat skills were at least on par with lancers, which was still a threat to Noah. On the contrary, assassin, for Noah, who had excellent sensing ability, may not be difficult to deal with. Well? Noah, who was thinking about all this, suddenly felt a strange feeling, and his footsteps subconsciously stopped. Raising his head, he looked forward. What was imprinted in Noah's eyes was the dark. There was no pedestrian at all, a figure slowly walking toward this side. That was a very conspicuous person. If one had to say why, it would be because that person had a head of very eye-catching golden hair. He was wearing black and white, like a motorcycle suit. His figure was slender, his hands were in his pockets, like a wanton teenager, exuding a sense of existence that could not be ignored. In that strong sense of existence, Noah felt a sense of oppression. That didn't mean that the wanton teenager in front of him was very threatening to Noah. Instead, as if it was a matter of course, that person was releasing their presence to the entire world that they existed in. Therefore, that sense of oppression was not directed at Noah, but seemed to be directed at the surrounding environment. That was definitely not an ordinary person. For a moment, Noah did not move anymore. Standing in the same place, he looked straight at the blonde man walking toward him. The blonde man did not seem to notice Noah's existence. His eyes were closed, and there was a trace of a domineering arc at the corner of his mouth. With leisurely steps, he walked past Noah. Between Tanjing, just as the blonde man passed by Noah, a light sentence drifted into Noah's ears. If you don't hurry to that woman's side, she will be in more and more pain. Leaving this sentence, the blonde man gradually disappeared into the moonlit night with leisurely footsteps as if he did not exist in the first place. Noah did not turn his head, nor did he speak. He just stared at the dark road in front of him, deep in the darkness. After a long time, he suddenly smiled. It seems that there are still many unexpected factors in this Holy Grail war. Chapter 730. The next day, not long after dawn, Noah left the apartment. He didn't even have breakfast. He followed the path he had taken yesterday and arrived at Enosaka's house. Noah raised his hand and was about to knock on the door, but the door in front of him was opened. Then, Archer in a red and black night suit appeared in front of Noah and looked at Noah. "You just signed a partnership yesterday, and you can't wait to find my master today?" "If you can't wait, that's fine. After all, I have something to ask Enosaka." Noah withdrew his hand and asked Archer. "Then, where is Enosaka?" "Still sleeping. That woman is not good at dealing with the morning. It's impossible for her to get up at this time." Archer replied expressionlessly. He opened the door completely and turned sideways. "In short, if you want to find Rin, then go find him yourself." After saying this, Archer's entire body disappeared under the cover of a blue mist that was similar to spiritual energy. He had entered the state of spiritual transformation. Seeing this, Noah's eyes twitched. This guy, just like Rin Enosaka said, he's really arrogant. With that said, Noah also walked into the entrance of Tasaka's house. After closing the door, he walked through the corridor in front of the door and headed for the stairs. Enosaka's house was the manager of Fuyuki City. As a magician family with some history, even if Rin Enosaka was the only one left in the house, there were naturally magicians in this house. Just like the old mansion with pearls, Enosaka's house was full of barriers and magic spells left by Rin Enosaka or the former residents of Enosaka's house. If one barged in without permission, there would be no return. Of course, for Noah, who had a strong resistance to curses, those enchantments and spells were as good as non-existent. He would vanish with a gentle touch. However, Noah didn't come here to cause trouble. He really had something to ask Rin Enosaka. Therefore, Noah went directly to the stairs on the second floor and walked toward Rin Enosaka's room. Yesterday, Noah had taken a look around Tosaka's house. As for the location of Rin Enben's room, Rin Enben had casually mentioned it yesterday. In order not to accidentally break into a girl's room, Noah also made a note of it. Who would have thought that it would come in handy in such a situation? After passing through the long corridor, Noah arrived in front of a room and knocked on the door. "Yosaka, are you there?" These words were met with an indescribable silence. Thinking of what Archer had just said, Noah knocked harder on the door and raised his voice a little. "Nagasaka, reply if you're here, or I'm going to barge in." However, after he finished speaking, there was still a moment of silence. Noah pursed his lips and helplessly reached out to open the door. "I'm coming in." Noah opened the door to Rin Enben's room, exposing the entire room to him. It was a rather spacious room. The decorations were a bit old-fashioned, without the pink color that a girl's room should have. It looked somewhat lifeless, but the warm atmosphere was more or less there. Perhaps it was because the weather was still very cold, although there was no heater in the room, the windows were tightly shut, and the curtains were drawn, making the entire room a bit dark. In such a situation, in the innermost part of the room, there was a bed that took up quite a lot of space. The blanket was actually a mess, twisted into a ball. From the twisted blanket, Noah noticed a fluctuating breath. Needless to say, the person that Noah was looking for must be like a snail hiding in its shell, nestled in a ball of quilt. At this moment, the corner of Noah's mouth twitched. Was she not good at coping with the morning? This was a sleeping difference that she couldn't tolerate at night, right? Of course, for a beautiful girl to have such a sleeping posture, perhaps, it was a cute point. Unfortunately, Noah didn't have the time to look at Rinanaka's sleeping posture. He sighed and walked into the room. He walked to the edge of the bed and reached out his hand to shake the blanket that was twisted into a ball. "Enben, wake up." Under Noah's call and shaking, the twisted blanket finally moved. Yes. Just like the words said, it only moved a little. In the next second, the blanket immediately fell into a dead silence, and no longer moved. Noah felt that his patience was wearing thin. He resisted the urge to lift the blanket, took a deep breath, stood up, and walked out of the room. After some time, Noah returned to Rin Enben's room with a piece of ice in his hand. He narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything. He slightly lifted a corner of the blanket and then, without mercy, threw the ice in his hand in. Wah dash. The next moment, the blanket that was twisted into a ball suddenly bounced up. With a cry, Rin Enben jumped out of the blanket in her pajamas. Her hair was untied, and it cascaded down to her waist like a waterfall. She jumped and screamed. So cold. So cold. Should it be said that Noah's method was unbelievably accurate? The ice that Noah threw into the blanket actually went under Rin Enben's pajamas. Rin Enben pulled it out and threw it on the ground, panting heavily. What's going on? Why are there ice cubes here? Realizing that Rin Enben didn't notice his presence, Noah covered his face and sighed. Because I was the one who threw it in. Rin Enben only just realized that there was another person in her room. She turned her head and looked at Noah, who was covering his face and sighing. She raised her eyebrows and pointed at him. Why are you here? I'm curious. Why didn't you notice that I came in? Noah retorted. Although we have a cooperative relationship, you're completely defenseless, which is basically telling me that now is the best time to get rid of you. That's why you should be thankful that I threw an ice cube at you instead of a magic bullet, Miss Tosaka. So annoying. So many things have happened in the past few days. At least let me have a good night's sleep. Rin Enben's shoulders and head drooped as she spoke weakly. So, why did you wake me up so cordially? I just have something to ask you. Noah looked at Rin Enben and paused for a moment before asking. Let me ask you. Sakura's surname is Jiantong, right? Is it that Jiantong? At first, Noah didn't think about Jiantong Sakura's surname. However, last night, when the mysterious blonde man mentioned it, Noah remembered Jiantong Sakura's surname. In Fuyuki City, there were 3 magic families that created the Holy Grail War ritual: Enbin, Jiantong, and Baron. If Jiantong Sakura's surname was Jiantong, then wouldn't it mean that Jiantong Sakura was also related to the magic world, and could even be related to the Holy Grail War? After all, as the 3 families that created the Holy Grail War ritual, every time the Holy Grail War ritual, there would be people from these 3 families participating in the Holy Grail War. Now, Rin Enbin from Enbin and Baron from Baron had already appeared. What about the Tong family's representative? Thinking about this question and the mysterious blonde man's words last night, Noah felt that something was wrong. He came here at dawn today to try to get to the bottom of it. Are you suspecting that Sakura is also a master? At the mention of Jiantong Sakura, Rin Enbin seemed to wake up and shook his head. No, you should also be able to feel that there is no trace of magic on Sakura's body. She can't be called a magician at all. Jiantong Sakura is actually declining now. In this generation, even the magic circuit is almost exhausted. They are no different from ordinary people. Therefore, Jiantong Sakura should have no participants this time. That's true. Noah frowned. After a while, he looked at Rin Enbin. Are you going to school today? What's wrong? Nothing. Noah said such a sentence. If you plan to go, take me with you. Chapter 731. Suechuan Gakuin. It was a high school located in Fuyuki City. It wasn't a noble school, nor was it a civilian school. It was just a very ordinary school. In terms of scale, Suechuan Gakuin wasn't particularly luxurious. Not to mention Haolein Gakuin, which occupied an entire artificial island when Noah studied in the world of absolute dual blades, it wasn't very outstanding even compared to Haolein Gakuin in the world of Demon High School. However, in Noah's view, from an ordinary person's point of view, Suechuan Gakuin was the kind of school that couldn't be picked out. It was slightly better than the school in Sanyo City that Noah studied in the other parallel world. Therefore, there were many students studying in this Suechuan Gakuin. Rin Enosaka was a student of this school. Matsumoto Sakura, who called Rin Enosaka Sr., was also a student of this school. Under the leadership of Rin Enosaka, who finally cheered up, Noah walked on the road to Suechuan Gakuin and soon saw the corner of the school. Rin Enosaka kept muttering to Noah, who was getting closer and closer to Suechuan Gakuin, who was observing the school. There's no trace of magic on Sakura's body. Since we can't even feel the trace of magic, then even if there's magic in her body, it's probably very little. That level of magic isn't enough to maintain the appearance of a servant. Generally speaking, the Holy Grail shouldn't have chosen someone of that level to be its master. Gaia and Alea had also told Noah that the Holy Grail in Fuyuki City would choose to participate in the competition for its own people. The better the magician, the more likely they are to be chosen. And even if they are not particularly good magicians, if they have the factor of becoming the master, they will be chosen, such as having strong magic and so on. Of course, this is not absolute. The Holy Grail in Fuyuki City would sometimes choose some people who could be related to the Holy Grail War in some aspects as a candidate for the master. For example, there is a deep relationship with a servant that outsiders can't see. From Rin Enbin's point of view, that kind of relationship shouldn't exist between Mitsuharu and Mitsuharu Sakura. However, Rin Enosaka couldn't be sure. After all, no matter what, the Tong family was one of the 3 families that created the Holy Grail War. They were also responsible for the creation of the command incantation, so it was possible that they had other methods to make him be chosen by the Holy Grail. Therefore, Rin Enosaka's words were not meant for Noah's ears, but for himself. Noah could empathize with Rin Enbin. At the very least, Noah himself did not wish for Tonging to become master and participate in this killing party. Moreover, becoming a master meant becoming an enemy, and Rin Toyama didn't want to see Toyama Sakura become his enemy. It was only natural that he would behave this way. However, the more they thought about it, the more uneasy Noah and Rin Enbin felt. Especially Noah. After knowing that Tong Ying was from the Tong family, Noah felt that he had overlooked something important. Noah knew that Tong Ying seemed to have a past that no one knew. He originally thought that it was just Tong Ying's personal problem. Now it seemed that the truth was more complicated than Noah thought. In addition, Rin Enbin's almost neurotic behavior made Noah more or less suspicious. For some reason, he felt that Rin en Osaka had special feelings for his junior sister, Tong Ying. Just because Noah mentioned it, Rin Enbin started to nag, even to the point of comforting himself. Wasn't this a bit too exaggerated? Or, the relationship between Rin Enbin and Tong Ying wasn't as simple as what Noah heard on the surface? With their own thoughts, Noah and Rin Enbin finally arrived at the gate of Suichuanhara Academy. Because of Noah, Rin Enbin woke up early today and came to school early. Therefore, there were not many people in front of the school gate now. There were only a few students who needed to participate in the morning club activities coming and going in the school sparsely. It was very deserted. According to Rin Enbin, Tong Ying also participated in the club activities. Therefore, during this period of time, Tong Ying should have already arrived at school. However, before entering the school gate, the sharp-eyed Noah first noticed a person, causing him to stop in his tracks. Only Rin Enbin seemed to be immersed in his own world. He lowered his head and muttered to himself. In the next second, Rin Enbin heard a very flirtatious voice. "Yo, Enbin, you're early today." Hearing this voice, Rin Enbin's footsteps also stopped, but he seemed to recognize the owner of this voice. After faintly clicking his tongue, he raised his head. In front of the gate of Suichuan Gakuin Academy, there was a guy with a head full of seaweed. He had a proud expression on his face as he walked in the direction of Rin Osaka. He even pretentiously spread his arms. Hey, I thought today's club activities would be as boring as usual. I didn't expect Enbin to come so early. Why don't you come with me to the club?" Hearing this, Rin Enbin hid a trace of disdain in his eyes, and on his face, there was an elegant smile that made people feel like they were far apart. "Hello, Shinji Tong Ying." The person who had come was the seaweed head who had thrown a tantrum on the streets for no reason and had cursed at Tong Ying. Shinji Tong Ying. Tong Ying's brother. Until today, Noah finally knew the name of this guy who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Because Noah noticed Shinji Tong's arrival in advance, and because Rin Enbin was immersed in his own world, he didn't notice that Noah had stopped. At this time, Noah was still a bit away from Rin Enbin. Shinji Tong, who only had eyes for Rin Enbin, didn't notice that Noah, who made him lose face last time, wasn't far away. He also didn't notice Rin Enbin's polite smile as if he was facing a stranger. He kept walking back and forth in front of Rin Enbin. "Well, don't be so polite, just call me by my name." "How about I call you by your name?" Seeing Shinji Tong taking advantage of the situation, Rin Enbin was both amused and angry. "No need, Shinji Tong, we're not familiar enough to call each other by name. It's better to be polite here." What he meant was that Tong Shinji's actions had already reached the point of being rude and unsightly. However, Shinji Tong didn't realize the meaning of Rin Enbin's words at all, and he was still proud. "Don't say that, Enbin, since you came so much earlier than usual, there must be something you can do at this time, right?" Shinji Tong smiled as if he had seen through everything. He even reached out his hand and was about to put his arm around Rin Enbin's shoulder. For example, to have a good relationship with a boy who needs to participate in club activities and will come to school early. When these words came out, even Rin Enbin, who felt that she needed to maintain the elegance and politeness of a daughter in front of a rotten person, closed her eyes, and the smile on her face slowly disappeared. And this behavior, in Shinji Tong's eyes, meant that Rin Enbin had acquiesced to his words and actions, which made him happy and proud, and he immediately planned to put his arm around Rin Enbin's shoulder. Unfortunately, just when Shinji Tong was about to put his arm around Rin Enbin's shoulder, Rin Enbin opened his eyes, and his face and eyes became emotionless, as if he had given up on something. He turned around and directly avoided Shinji Tong's hand. I'm really convinced, there's someone who doesn't understand what I mean, there should be a degree of self-consciousness, idiot." Rin Enbin's avoidance and suddenly quite ruthless words made Shinji Tong stunned, and he was even at a loss. What? You still don't understand? Rin Enbin once again showed an elegant smile, but his words became nasty. I have no interest in you, do you understand? Chapter 732. I'm not interested in you at all. Do you understand? Rin Enosaka's merciless words made Shinji Tamatsuki stunned. When he reacted, his face turned red and he forced a smile. You. What are you talking about? Even if you deliberately hide it now, it's useless. If you obediently admit it, I can still give you some love. Tamatsuki classmate, it's fine if you don't understand words that are too profound, but please don't not understand what others say directly. You're not an ape. Rin Enosaka tilted her head. That action was quite cute, but the mercilessness in her words had already reached a limit. I don't know why you would have such an overconscious thought to think that I would have feelings for you, but I can clearly tell you that you misunderstood. No matter how I think about it, there's nothing about you that I would like. Enosaka. You. Shinji Tamatsuki's face turned green and white. It seemed that Rin Enosaka's words poked at his pride and face. Noah, who was not far away, originally thought that Shinji Tamatsuki was just teasing Rin Enosaka, but when he saw Shinji Tamatsuki's reaction, he was stunned. Shinji Tamatsuki, did he really think that Rin Enosaka came to school early in the morning for him? In this world, there was actually someone who was so self-conscious that he thought that a girl came to school early in the morning for him? Wasn't this a bit too funny? Noah had to admit that Shinji Tamatsuki's appearance was indeed a bit handsome. However, with that personality and character, to be honest, a real good woman would not like him. Whether or not Rin Enosaka was a good woman, Noah temporarily reserved his opinion on this point. But in terms of appearance and family background, Rin Enosaka was indeed impeccable. Then, would such a girl like her be interested in such a self-conscious and extremely self-righteous man? The answer, of course, was no. If you still don't understand, then it seems that I have to use my actions to prove it. Rin Enosaka seemed to be disgusted by Shinji Tamatsuki's overconscious behavior. Seeing Shinji Tamatsuki's face turn green and white, she did not intend to stop. She looked around and when she saw Noah standing not far away, she waved at Noah. Noah suddenly froze. What was she planning to do? And when Rin Enosaka waved her hand, Shinji Tamatsuki also noticed Noah. When he recognized Noah, his eyes widened and even his voice became sharp. It's you? Seeing this, Noah, who knew that he couldn't stay out of this, pursed his lips and walked forward. What's wrong? Rin Enbin asked Noah, who had walked up to him. Do you know him? No, rather than saying that I know him, it's better to say that I just found out his name. Noah glanced at Shinji Tamatsuki and said lightly. Not long ago, this guy was making trouble on the street. He lost his temper in front of Sakura for no reason. I taught him a lesson. It's really you. Thinking of the humiliation, Shinji Tamatsuki's face twisted. You dare to appear in front of me? Hearing this, Noah really wanted to laugh. Undoubtedly, he ran away because he was scared. Now, what did Shinji Tamatsuki rely on to say this in front of Noah? Sure enough, you're a rotten person. Rin Enosaka's eyes flashed with disgust, but in the next moment, she smiled. At that moment, Rin Enosaka actually did something in front of Shinji Mitsuki, which made Noah somewhat stunned. Rin Enosaka suddenly reached out her hand and hugged Noah's arm. She put her head on Noah's shoulder. You. Shinji Tamatsuki looked like he saw something unbelievable. He took 2 steps back and pointed at Rin Enosaka with a trembling finger. Enosaka. What are you doing? Shinji Tamatsuki's question was like being betrayed by his lover. But, Rin Enosaka had nothing to do with Shinji Tamatsuki. In other words, Shinji Tamatsuki took Rin Enosaka as his own. That's what happened. I say, Tamatsuki, let me explain it to you one by one, okay? Rin and Osaka hugged Noah tightly and said to Shinji Tamatsuki with a sweet smile on her face. In terms of appearance, you're not as outstanding as Noah. In terms of temperament, you can't even compare to a single strand of Noah's hair. In terms of ability, personality, and character, you're so weak that even I feel pity for you. With such a person who's many times better than you by my side, would you still think that I'm interested in you? Shinji Tamatsuki's face darkened. By the way, yesterday, Noah took me to a ball. It was an upper-class ball hosted by a famous jeweler. There, not only did I wear a dress that you can't afford in your lifetime, but I also met a lot of people that you can't reach in your lifetime. And those people are all Noah's acquaintances. Rin and Osaka didn't leave any face for Shinji Tamatsuki. She hugged Noah's arm and looked at Shinji Tamatsuki. So, know your place, self-righteous guy. Don't bother me again. I'm afraid my Noah will be angry with me. Leaving these words, Rin and Osaka hugged Noah's arm and walked intimately into the school under Noah's speechless and helpless expression. Shinji Tamatsuki just stood there. His expression became extremely ferocious because of the anger in his heart and another emotion. Noah didn't know that Rin and Osaka, who was very unreliable in front of him and would even drop the chain at the crucial moment, was actually the eldest daughter of Suechuan Academy. Because, House and Osaka was an ancient magic family. For generations, they held the idea that words and deeds should be elegant in accordance with their status. Therefore, Rin and Osaka could be said to be a well-behaved eldest daughter of a noble family. Appearance was outstanding. Conduct was dignified. Behavior was elegant. Grades were excellent. She was the perfect school flower that everyone recognized. This was Rin and Osaka's identity in Suechuan Academy. Because of this, in the school, many men naturally secretly yearned for Rin and Osaka. Shinji Tamatsuki was one of them. Now, the person he fancied announced in front of him that she belonged to another man? How could Shinji Tamatsuki endure this? In addition, this person was the one who made Shinji Tamatsuki lose face in front of everyone. After that, he was criticized and made fun of by many people in the school. How could Shinji Tamatsuki endure the tumbling emotions in his heart? In addition to endless anger, Shinji Tamatsuki's heart was also filled with monstrous jealousy. Bastard! Who would recognize a man who crawled out of nowhere? Shinji Tamatsuki fiercely turned around and looked at Rin and Osaka, who was hugging Noah's arm intimately. Shinji Tamatsuki looked at the man and woman with eyes full of resentment. Bastard! 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 After a series of ugly venting, Shinji Tamatsuki thought of something and suddenly laughed. His laugh was unusually cruel. In that case, don't blame me, and Osaka. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not looking at a man. On the other side, Noah, who was tightly hugged by Rin and Osaka, said in a bored tone. You actually used me as a shield. Rather than a shield, it's better to say that I just want to make that guy understand his own worth. Rin and Osaka said without care. To be honest, that guy has been like this for a long time. Today, I'm in a bad mood, and I'm too lazy to continue playing the good student game with him. Even if you're not here, I'll let him know how much he's worth. While saying this, Rin and Osaka didn't let go of Noah's hand. Instead, he looked at Noah with a devilish smile. What? Are you shy? Noah naturally wouldn't blush because of Rin and Osaka's intimate action. He was no longer the ignorant person he used to be. That guy is also from the Mitsuki family, right? Yes. Rin and Osaka answered without thinking. But, as a member of the Mitsuki family, the magic circuit in his body has basically dried up. He can no longer be a magician. Hearing this, Noah began to think. Chapter 733. It was the source of magic that all magicians were born with. This was the magic circuit. It was the simulated nerves in the magician's body, and it was also the individual qualification of a magician. It could transform the magician's life force into magic, and it was closely connected to the magic base plate, so that the magician could perform man-made miracles, that is, magic. In other words, the magic circuit was the most fundamental proof of a magician. Only with the magic circuit could one have magic, perform magic, and become a magician. On the other hand, the magic circuit was something that had been decided since birth. Whether it was its existence, quantity, or quality, it would not be increased by external factors. Because it was a very rare thing to begin with. Therefore, in order to be able to pass down the magic of their family and let their descendants inherit their research, in an attempt to one day reach the origin, usually, several generations of bloodline accumulation would be carried out, so that the descendants born would have a body that was more suitable for magic. If the existence of magicians was combined with each other, then the probability of the descendants having the magic circuit was very high, and some excellent ones could even have a good magic circuit, laying a huge foundation for themselves to become excellent magicians. Therefore, in the magic world, in order to be able to give birth to excellent descendants with the magic circuit, families that went overboard were simply doing breed improvement, just to increase the magic circuit of the children born. Of course, there were also some exceptions who mutated the magic circuit from ordinary people's families, and that was a special case among special cases. Naturally, since there were examples of magician families being able to produce more outstanding offspring than the previous generation, and there were also examples of magicians mutating from ordinary families, then there were gradually declining magic families, and their aptitude as magicians became lower and lower, until finally, there were no magician families at all. The Inter-Tong family was such an existence. In today's Tong family, Shinji's magic circuit is basically exhausted, and he can't even open it, so he can't be called a magician at all. Rin Enbin's tone became a little complicated. As for Xiaoying, that child has pretty good talent as a magician, but for some reason, she doesn't seem to have inherited the magic of the Tong family. If she can't even feel magic, it's useless no matter how good her talent is. In other words, if there is a master in the Mesotome family, it would either be Sakura or Shinji Mesotome? Noah asked. Which one do you think is more likely? I don't think either of them is possible, Rin Enosaka replied. Sakura basically doesn't have any magic power, and Shensi has even exhausted his magic circuit. If these two people can be chosen by the Holy Grail, then I have overestimated the threshold of the Holy Grail War. That being said, Rin Enosaka's words were convincing, but there were also some parts that he didn't seem to want to admit. No matter what, my goal is to obtain victory in this Holy Grail War. Even though his expression was complicated, Rin Enbin's eyes were filled with determination. Even if Sakura really becomes master, I will beat her without mercy. Rin Enosaka's words were quite resolute. It was just like how Aoko had declared in front of Noah that she would definitely take care of her sister. This also made Noah realize. The relationship between Rin Enosaka and Mesotome Sakura was definitely not as simple as it seemed. Just as Noah and Rin Enosaka fell into silence, a voice full of surprise and uncertainty came from behind Noah and Rin Enosaka. Noah-san? Tenosaka-senpai? Hearing this voice, both Noah and Rin Enosaka were shocked. They turned their heads and looked at the source of the voice. Noah and Rin Enosaka saw the person they had been talking about since early in the morning. At this time, Mesotome Sakura was standing in front of the door of a Japanese-styled building. She maintained the posture of opening the door and looked at Noah and Rin Enosaka with surprise and astonishment. The reason was naturally because Rin Enosaka was tightly hugging Noah's arm and snuggling into Noah's embrace. You guys, looking at Mesotome Sakura's stuttering appearance, Noah and Rin Enosaka followed her gaze and looked at themselves. Then, they finally realized the situation they were in. At this moment, Noah aside, Rin Enosaka seemed to have been electrocuted. She suddenly let go of Noah's arm and her face was slightly flushed. She quickly said to Mesotome Sakura. No, it's not what you think. Sakura. It's not what you think? Then what is it? From an outsider's point of view, Rin Enosaka's panic and explanation looked like she was trying to hide something. Mesotome Sakura's expression became more and more awkward. However, this gentle girl still spoke out to comfort her. Tenosaka-senpai, please calm down first. I didn't misunderstand anything, please don't worry. After saying that, Mesotome Sakura stuttered again. It's just that Tenosaka-senpai, who used to hate Noa-san, why did you suddenly change your attitude? If possible, can you tell me? After Mesotome Sakura said that, Noa and Rin Enosaka finally realized. Rin Enosaka, who used to dislike Noa, and Noa, who didn't like Rin Enosaka, didn't know when it started, but they were able to stand side by side like today. They didn't regard each other as outsiders at all, and they even touched each other. Rin Enosaka seemed like she wanted to explain something, but was interrupted by Noa's sigh. In this situation, the more you explain, the more chaotic it will be. You better shut up. Rin Enosaka was immediately speechless. After a while, Rin Enosaka coughed and pretended to look at Mesotome Sakura seriously. Sakura, Noa is looking for you today. Huh? Mesotome Sakura was stunned. Looking for me? That's right, I'm just leading the way. Rin Enosaka brushed her hair, turned around, and waved her hand as if her mission was completed. Then, Sakura, I'll leave this guy to you, I'll go to the classroom first. After saying that, Rin Enosaka left without permission. Mesotome Sakura reached out her hand to Rin Enosaka's direction, but that hand could only hang in the air as if it was frozen there. Watching Rin Enosaka leave, Mesotome Sakura looked at Noa with a confused expression. Noa-san, looking at the confused look on Tanjing's face, Noa smiled bitterly. But soon, he smiled again. I'm just curious about what you usually do in this school, Xiaoying. Is that so? Mesotome Sakura finally reacted. Her expression seemed to be suddenly enlightened, and she couldn't help but smile. I'm very happy that Noa-san came. Hearing that, Noa fixed his gaze on Mesotome Sakura's smiling face and smiled as well. I'm also very happy to see Sakura's smile. That was the truth. From the first time they met until now, this young girl who had always acted inferior and passive in front of Noa was finally willing to openly smile. Ah. Mesotome Sakura quickly lowered her head and shyly covered her face, then said to Noa rather clumsily. Then. Would Mr. Noa like to come in and take a look at the archery department? Is that okay? Noa hesitated. I won't disturb you, right? No, there aren't many people here at this time of the year. Mesotome Sakura seemed to be a little hesitant, and even her tone had become a little unconfident. So, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Seeing that Mesotome Sakura was doubting his words, Noa couldn't help but laugh. Then take a look around. If there's anything inconvenient, remember to tell me. Mesotome Sakura nodded repeatedly, then opened the door a little embarrassedly and welcomed Noa into the archery department. Before entering the archery department, Noa discreetly sized up Mesotome Sakura's body, especially the back of her hand. If Mesotome Sakura was the master, then there should be a command incantation somewhere on her body. As long as the command incantation was found, it would prove that Mesotome Sakura was the master. Unfortunately, Mesotome Sakura was dressed in archery attire today, and she was also wearing protective gear and gloves on her hands. Noa couldn't see the back of her hand at all. Left with no choice, Noa could only choose to observe the situation first. In fact, whether or not Mesotome Sakura was the master wasn't something that Noa really cared about. What Noa really cared about was what the handsome blonde man said that night. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.